Okay, shalom, family. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. All right, welcome, everybody. We thank you. Thank you for your patience, running a couple minutes behind. Thank you guys who are coming in from the early rise of Bible study session. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Osayo, Ohio. I see you. Kamsa. Sorry. Kamsamida. We're thankful and grateful to have you guys on with us and for another opportunity to talk to you one more again. I'm sorry, I'm still up here trying to rig this thing a little bit so we can get a little better presentation for y'all who are on YouTube. We thank everybody who's on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. All right. Hopefully we'll get this in correctly. Ako aba itesen. Habari jambo mimi ni Kofi ninafuraha kukutana na wewe. Shalom, bakwatav, barak alat sham Yahweh, anai Kofi, kohelet at Servant of Christ. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And this hasn't been something, well, let me go ahead and finish our little opening. We once again give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you so very much for your support that you've given her. She has many different tinctures, which are natural medicines that she uses to be able to heal the community. And her business is the health of the diaspora. So we thank you guys for supporting that. To the moderators, the ministerial staff, the SOC, the Lottie Diana, everybody, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, whatever the case might be, we're thankful and grateful for you coming in. We want to give you a cultural perspective. That's all we come here to do, is give you a perspective considering a culture, give you a cultural context that maybe you don't think about with these things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So in moderators, I'm asking you on all platforms, if you don't mind, kind of stepping up a little bit more if you're able to today, because this is a subject that people are going to see pictures or things and just assume what I'm thinking, this and that or whatever, and sometimes might assume correctly, and it might make people upset. So we ask you to be open-minded, though. Just be willing to listen, things of that nature. We're not here to say that just because somebody's white, they're evil, this and that or whatever, but we're here to have honest conversation. And so today, let's kind of jump right into this. Today, we're going to talk about systemic Satanism. I told you it's going to be a rough one today. We're going to talk about systemic Satanism. Let's say hello to everybody as they come on now before we start dealing with all that stuff. How you doing, Jeremy? How you doing, Sister Dawn? Hello, everybody on Facebook. How you doing? To everybody who's watching this later on, we appreciate you as well. How you doing, Brother Keith? Sister Cynthia? Heaven B, thank you. Ladybug, Sunny Ray, Anthony, Carrie, how you doing? Aphrodisiac, Anthony. And by the way, if you get a chance to try and check out Carrie on her channel, has a lot of different stuff. See if you can support her business as well. I think I'm thinking of the right Carrie, I believe. Yashir Israel, thanks for being on. Tamaya, Sister Tamaya, how you doing? Sister Monica, Mayhew, Sister Saul, thank you. Anthony, Big Brother Thomas, Sister Tracy, Annette, DNB, Natural Girl. There was one white officer you probably protected. Yeah, we're going to talk about that some, right? How you doing, Myrtle? How you doing, Balloon Water? Cream_81, her 302, Film Crew. Marky, Shiso Israel, Big Ak, Albert. Okay. DJ Undercover. How you doing? Thanks for being part of the community. Jacob's Trouble. Oh, Jacob's Trouble, excuse me. So if I missed your name, please forgive me. Charge of my head, not to my heart. I think Anubis, Big Ock. Did I say hello? Big Brother Thomas, not sure. Sister Nadine, everybody who's on here, we appreciate you so very much. So we're gonna jump right into. So we're talking about systemic Satanism. Let's just be honest, right? Everybody's talking about this stuff and how can 5 black police officers be involved with what happened with, and I hope I'm saying it right, Tyree, right? Is Tyre, I believe. I don't know if it's Tyree, Teray. So forgive me. I haven't tried to watch videos or do all the stuff or whatever because honestly, we see a whole bunch of this stuff over and over and over again to the point to where sometimes you got to guard your gaze. I pray for my people. We help them. We try to help families as much as we can behind the scenes, even giving some advice as far as lawful and legal things that people can do, you know. But real talk, there's some things that are happening, and we got to be honest about this. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. And I know a lot of you people are already lost in the sauce of democracy, even though the Constitution declares that you are not a democracy. You know that, right? See, well, I want to talk about the systemic issue. How you doing, Sister Ellen? Right? Why is Black Lives Matter so quiet? I mean, Black Lives Matter is not for black people per se. It was something that used black people as a blackface organization, but I'm not tripping off that. See, I believe that Black Lives Matter, but I don't believe in the organization, if that makes sense. And we got to get past that, right? See, the goal is to see even things like that just happen. This is an everyday occurrence. I'm not saying we shouldn't say his name. I'm not saying we shouldn't worry about this or that. And how you doing, babe? Once again, my wife is on the Audible Mind. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. How you doing, Minister Sonia? How you doing, Snet? How you doing, Brooklyn Butterfly? Right. See, it's not about, see, this is a daily occurrence. There's going to be more of your people dealing with this today. How you doing, Brother Elijah? There's going to be way more of your people. They're going to be your people again dealing with this same issue today, right? We're going to focus on one person because this one person is what's being used to be turned into a political statement, right? But you got to comprehend this is systemic. This is systemic Satanism. That's what we're talking about today. See, people don't believe that this is a religion, right? People don't believe that this is a religion. The word religion literally means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. If you think you're a freedom fighter, then freedom fighting is your religion. And there's certain things that we should see in your religion to see that you identify with that religion by your acts and your deeds, right? You might have faith in something, but never, be part of the religious activity. That's when faith without works is dead. You got a lot of people who say that they want to help us as allies, whatever they want to call themselves. But when we dig deeper into it, we see that you ain't really about what you say, right? That's faith without works is dead. It causes a lot of people to continue to be killed, by the way, right? You said it's not about religion. It's not about religion. Religion, once again, is religion. Legion of people that repeat the same thing. That's what religion is. So if you have a police force who allows people to continue to be killed, and it stretches across the country, by definition, that would be a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. So now we should check what the religion is. Why are they doing this? For example, see, people don't get this. People see, once again, people are going to jump on this. You're going to jump on your belief system. You're going to jump on this, that, or whatever, right? I get it because see, I'm dealing with a culture, and a culture feeds your beliefs, and beliefs feed your emotions. We talked about that recently. Those who were with us when we talked about that. So some people are already emotional because I'm dealing with your beliefs. Because in order to deal with your beliefs, I have to deal with the culture that are informing your beliefs. And if you support that culture to a certain extent, how you doing? 125 leave. If you're gonna support that culture, no matter what, then that means you have to support a belief no matter what. And to support that belief no matter what, you have to be emotionally invested. And to be emotionally invested, now you got to start feeling a certain way. Now your feelings are messed up long enough, you get into a certain mood, which means that the effort or energy you're going to put into what I'm saying is going to be something that you habitually turn off or tune out or try to deny that there's any truth to it, although you haven't even heard exactly where I stand. And for those who are just coming on, once again, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, right? Malcolm X taught me in order to be, he said, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not even an American. I got sense enough to know it. And if you know what it is to even be a private citizens are technically not Americans, at least not modern Americans. But you don't know what these terms mean. You don't know what they are. How you doing, Sister Sharice? How you doing, Brother Alton? Everybody who's coming on. right? A non-citizen national, right? See, you got to recognize who you are. So you're having a conversation with me, assuming that I carry the same thing you did. I once did. I served in the military. I joined the military at age 17. As many people that are ready to go ahead and down me and then say that they support the troops and that they love the veterans and that they support this and that or whatever. Like I'm somebody who knows this from the inside out. I served the 4-star generals. Like when your 4 stars make decisions, I'm one of the people that were their predecessors that helped to set those things up as far as the system that they use and to support it was gung ho from the beginning. I don't speak as somebody who's not attached at all. I speak as somebody who's there. I speak as somebody who was a military police officer. I speak as somebody who had to learn how to do duties and even go into the civilian sector to be able to do some of these things. And greetings to everybody coming on. How you doing, Romac? How you doing, Clarence? If I miss your name, forgive me. There's a lot more traffic than what we might normally have today because of the topic that we're having today, and there's no problem with that, right? And if you disagree with the topic, if you agree with whatever, hey, whatever the case might be, that's fine. All we're asking is that you be willing to comprehend that there is some systemic stuff, right? I need you to comprehend. See, there's systematic and there's systemic. Today we're talking about systemic Satanism, and you don't even recognize because you're so busy thinking that you got to separate. That you got to separate this up. We're about to get into the cause now. See, people think you can separate things that are going on from people's belief system, but you don't even know what's going on. See, because you think that it's as simple as black and white. But what about if we say it's not so simple? What if there's a spirit attached to this? What if there's a system attached to this? What if this thing goes back to slave patrolmen who are still masquerading as the same thing that they used to be? See, it is in a sense, right? Because of the country that we have and what this country stands for. It is black and white, but you got slave catchers. But guess what? Anybody, see, what does the law say? 13th Amendment, right? The 13th Amendment tells us something simple, right? The 13th Amendment tells us something simple that anybody who is arrested, they become a slave, which means that if you're a police officer out to arrest somebody, you are somebody who catches slaves, black, white, or in between, right? To stop making excuses. What are the excuses for, Mike? Mikey? What are the excuses for? Listen to what I have to say. Because I don't want you to help me. I want to make sure that my people come out of something, and I want to make sure that we are taking care of self. I'm a private citizen. I don't want you. And I don't make excuses for anything. I'm telling you, and I literally just said that there are white and black people. You don't know what a citizen is, though. You're a citizen. You're a citizen of the corporation. Yes, my people. My people. I have no problem, my people. And people who are like-minded, they become my people as well, and we work together. Are you like-minded and trying to make sure that we come out of this mess? Then you can become my people. If not, then you're not my people. It's that simple. There's nothing racist about that. There's nothing hateful about there. There's nothing despicable about that. If you're somebody who's like-minded and making sure that people should be able to be free, then you are my people. If you live by a certain standard. If you don't want to live under that standard, if you don't want to understand that, then you're not my people. It's that simple, right? If Idi Amin killed my people, then he's despicable, even if he is my people. If um who's the one I'm looking for? I'm sorry, not Stalin, but if Leopold, the first, second, and third, killed a bunch of my people, both, right? Killed a bunch of my people. Both, by the way, have probably killed more than people than what they say Hitler did, right? If either one of them kills my people, they're both despicable. Oh, I'd like to focus on how we're all alike. Yes, we can all be alike, but there's nothing wrong with saying that it's okay to love the differences. See what I'm saying? This is the spirit. This is the spirit I'm dealing with, right? This is the spirit we are all dealing with. Why are we afraid? You said, why is the host muting you? If you can't comment, then turn them off. How about this? Why can't you listen long enough to be able to say that, hey, we're coming along the same thing? Why do you have to be in charge? Why can you not listen to the cries of somebody else and say, either I'll empathize with it or not? And if you don't empathize, then feel free to go and listen to something else. How you doing, Sister Irene? See, this is a community We know each other. We talk to each other and things like that. And you're coming in to be able to listen to what it is that we present. If you don't want to listen or you find it extremely offensive, then you have the right to be able to listen somewhere else. Right? I haven't muted anybody. Right? If you see me do this, then I'm muting you. Right? I'm dealing with 3 different platforms, at least at all times. But we thank you though for being on. I'm on, Minister Nice. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? How you doing, Minister Sonia? Like, so people are out here once again. See, I told you guys that before we start, people are going to be so emotionally tied to this that they're not going to be able to see the truth or even hear it. This is the problem. This is the problem before we even get to the stuff that people want to say, 5 blacks cop killed, well, he deserved it. Well, Jason Whitlock said, well, this, that, or whatever. I don't even have to get to all that. I don't even have to listen to all that because I already know where we're headed. Because people won't listen long enough to be able to hear somebody else's perspective. And how you doing? I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, it's ARACE. Uh-oh. ARACELY. I don't know if it was a racely or something like that. That's probably way off. But thank you for being on. Right? There's a spirit of this stuff. See, watch this. Before we talk about this stuff as far as police officers, before we start about police officers, do you know what a policy is? Do you know what politics are? Do you know what capitalism is? Let's start there. Do you know what capitalism is? By definition. Not this whole thing that you run through. Do you know what capitalism is? Thank you for the love. If I say you are in a capitalist society, you are in capitalism. ISM makes it a system. So what is that system? If I say capitalism, by definition, can you tell it to me? No, I don't know. I don't know that particular person. See, everybody's so busy. This and that, talking about this, blah, blah. What is capitalism? Let's just start there. Because that's what you're in. And you don't want to talk about the system. We're talking about systemic Satanism today. You don't know what the system is. To buy and consume, part of it. Something that poor people have no control over, part of it. But the police are policy protectors, definitely on it. An economic system, cool. Watch this. I'll say it 5 times just to make sure it resonates, or if you're taking notes, you can go ahead and write this down, right? And you can look it up to see if what I'm saying is true, okay? You love yourself for being in the world, but not of it. I'm on. Watch this. You ready for this? Ready for this? This is what politics is. Politics is a system. I'm sorry, politics. Capitalism. Capitalism is a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations who have owners who wield it for profit and not by the state. I'm going to say that again. See, because you're going to miss it. If you come on here thinking that I'm coming on here, I just hate this group of people, or blah, blah, you're going to miss it if you don't get this foundation. You ready? Okay. Capitalism is defined. You say, nah, bro. Okay. Look up the definition. See, you won't look up the definition. You just say no, because you already have it in your heart that whatever you're thinking is correct. Hear what I'm saying? Capitalism is defined as a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. The trade industry is wielded by private corporations for profit. Those corporations have owners, and they have control rather than the state. All right. I'm trying to get you the system, the keys to come out of this world if you'd like to, and be in a better type of system. Okay. Here it is again. Right. What is the definition of capitalism? The third time I give it to you 3 more times. All right. What is politics? I'm sorry. What is capitalism rather? Capitalism is a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade industry is wielded by private corporations for profit, right? And those corporations have owners, right? And the owners run things rather than the state. So you're focusing on the wrong thing. You don't even talk about the owners. or capitalism where the system's supposed to be. You don't even know what the 13th Amendment says. You don't even know that the word democracy is not even in your constitution. How you in a government that says that democracy, what you think democracy is, because democracy doesn't mean what you think it does, but even still, you think you're in a democracy, but there's no word democracy in your constitution, neither in your state constitutions. But let's go over this definition a couple more times. What is capitalism? Capitalism is defined as politics and economics that are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations for profit. Those corporations have owners, and the owners run things rather than the state. Yeah, it is a republic. You even pledge allegiance to it. When you pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. And by the way, China's a republic, and Russia's a republic, Cuba's a republic, North Korea's a republic. But you think you're in something different. You're not seeing this the system. Last time, what is the definition of capitalism? Right? There's a way to be free, but you got to come out of a capitalistic mindset. They allow you by law to be free. All right, here we go. Last time, capitalism is defined as a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations for profit. Those corporations have owners, which means the owners run things and not the state. By the way, what is a state? Every state that you live in, what is a state? The state is a country. It is a government. The United States of America are supposed to be 50 countries who have sovereign right. But they come together. But when they come together, they have to come together under what? They decided, they signed away their rights to come together under what? A federal government. Catch this now. And thank you to everybody who's coming on. I'm sorry if I'm missing your names. We got a lot more traffic than we normally do. Right? Right? Well, a state is government. The United States is a corporation. A state is a country. The head of state is the same as a king. By definition, a head of state is the same as a king, a queen, or even an emperor. By definition, right? So you're talking about these people as if, oh, they're just people who work for us and they should have been working for us. No, you see, by the badges they wear, they work for the state, but the state has signed away its rights to these corporations. See, what is a prison? A prison is a corporation. See, once again, we got this thing twisted. A prison is a corporation. Why do you have quotas that have to be filled? Why do you have quotas that have to be filled? How you doing, Sister Kimberly? Why is it that that quotas have to be filled? That certain amount of people have to be arrested or have to be given tickets or whatever? Why do you have quotas? Where do the quotas come from? Where do quotas come from? Yep, the United States is a corporation. The United States of America is slightly different, but the United States is a corporation. See, you see what I'm saying? We're having the wrong argument. People are arguing about black, white, Republican, Democrat, black on black crime, blah, blah. No. You don't comprehend how the system works. And that's why we're not free. If we're not free here first, it's gonna be difficult to be free in any other way. You hear what I'm saying? You don't comprehend. You don't comprehend. See, once again, right? You're what the corporation tells the state what to do. The reason you have quotas is because the people who own the prisons have contracts with the state that say that we have to have this many people imprisoned. If we don't have this percentage of our prisons filled, of this percentage of our jail cells filled with these fake citizens through their birth certificate, if we don't have these birth certificates filling our prisons, yeah, we jumping right in. We got to, right? If we don't have this much percentage of our prisons filled, then you owe us money. So if the state doesn't want to pay their master money, then they take you to slaves and they put you in there so that you can pay the debt that they otherwise would have to pay. See, we got the wrong idea about this. You don't even realize, you don't think about that when you hear a quota. Arise, ye depart, for this is not your rest, because it's polluted. I shall just, yeah. hmm We're not in the land of our captivity. Like when we say we're in the land of our captivity, people don't get it. You are captive. You are captivated. You're captor. See, so if your prisons, right, you think they're your prisons because you're still a citizen. So if your prisons are not filled, then guess what? You have to pay taxes for it. So since you pay less taxes, if you want to pay less taxes, you say, police, please arrest these people. That's the mindset that that has infiltrated your soul, your psychology, your psyche. You know, psychology in the Greek, psyche in the Greek literally means the soul. Psychology literally means the study of the soul. Psychologist literally means somebody who's proficient at the study of your soul. And you have people that have studied your psychology. You haven't, but they've studied you. You haven't studied theirs, but they've studied you. And then somebody comes along and tells you this stuff. You say, oh no, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're just making stuff up. But go look at law. You said, so who keeps law and order without police? That's a great question. But before you try to jump to that, to try and if we jump to that, we try to dismiss everything that we're talking about now. Because let's be honest with this: before there were police officers, did tribes in Ireland, the tribes in the Americas, the tribes in Africa, the tribes in Australia, the tribes in Wales, the tribes in Germany, the tribes in Shwi and Ashanti and Timbuktu and all this, before there were police officers to make sure that they police these people, were we able to police people? Matter of fact, before there were police officers, was there less crime? I didn't say was there no crime, but was there less crime? So you got to ask yourself, what causes crime to rise if police officers are in place? If there was less crime before police officers, then maybe we should ask ourselves, are these police officers, what is the police policy? See, the police, they give policy. So what is the policy in place that causes the police to be able to enslave people no matter what color they are? See, today, once again, we're talking about systemic Satanism. And nobody wants to talk about the fact that this is demonic influence put on purpose, in purpose, on point. It is on. People keep saying this system is broken. The system works exactly the way policy demands it does. By the way, policy, poly, by the way, is talking about people. Polls, politics are talking about the opinions of people. And what's the first part of capitalism again? Capitalism is defined as a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That means that along with your economic situation, they use politics. You as a people, they inform what gives you your opinion. And if you have nothing else to inform you, then you will keep voting, or you will keep fighting for things that are being fed to you rather than things that are actually for you. Right? A lot of people get fed lollipops, but lollipops break your body down, right? A lot of people get fed a lot of bread in their diet, but if you have a lot of bread in your diet, no matter how much meat and vegetables are on there, your body will turn the bread into sugar and has to digest that first before it can even get to the meat and the vegetables. You're being fed a whole bunch of stuff and you don't recognize what's being fed. That's the issue, is you're fighting against something and you've been fed the wrong thing for so long, and now somebody says, hey, you know what, this is how I actually make the hot dog, and you don't want to stop eating the hot dog, but the hot dog will kill you. I was raised on bologna. Hey, I'm never going to stop eating bologna. Bologna will kill you. You know what I'm saying? I was raised on this pork. Pork will kill you. Do you hear what I'm saying? You're in a system in which politics and economics are used to control your trade and industry. You are buying things and getting jobs based upon what the polls say. You were raised in somebody else's poll and somebody else's opinion, and yet you're trying to argue your way out of it. But how do you argue your way out of it when your prism is the mindset of the person who put you in the situation? You said, what should we do now? Well, we have a lot of stuff that we do already around the world, right? If you'd like to be able to find out more information about that, we'll put that up at the end of the live. Also, you can go on our main TikTok channel. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, of course, you can just look in the description, but you can click on our link tree and you can go ahead and find out more information about what we do. And if you'd like to be a partaker of it, feel free to be a partaker of it. But before we talk about what we're going to do, I need you to see there's a problem. Because how do you solve something and say there's not a problem? See what I'm saying? Everybody, well, give me the solution to the problem. First things first, how do you solve something that you say doesn't exist? And I'm not trying to yell at you particular. I'm sorry. I get excited about teaching sometimes. Right? I'm a teacher, so I get excited. So it might sound like I'm coming at you. I'm not coming at anybody. I want that to be known. Much love and respect for everybody who's on here. Right? And how you doing, Minister Shantae, if I didn't say so already? Much love to everybody who's on here. Right? But I'm trying to tell you that, yeah, you have been indoctrinated, and indoctrination is not even necessarily bad. I'm talking about who has indoctrinated you. If you don't even know that politics literally means an opinion of the people that's shaped by the person who's in charge, then you don't even, why would you be in politics? Why would you keep voting? Question for you. Everybody you voted for, has any of these people, has any of these policies, I know you see, and I want to be very specific. Has any of these people that you voted for knocked on your door to make sure you're okay? You fighting for them because they're Republican, Democrat. You're fighting for them because they're white or they're black. You're fighting for them because they're an ally or they're not. But any of them, have any of them taken care of you? All those people that are judges, the only real judges are Supreme Court justices, technically. You think that all these other people, they work for the legislative branch. They're priests. That's why they wear priestly robes. You don't even know what's going on. I'm talking about a spirit today. See, but these real judges that wear priests, I'm sorry, that wear priestly robes, right? In the Supreme Court, all of them, all 9 of them, how many of them done anything for you to make sure that you specifically are taken care of? By the way, that's not their job. You've been fed a lie. It is not their job to make sure that you are taken care of. They are supposed to make sure that the law is followed. And we are people that are lawless. So we don't care about studying it. But their job is to make sure that law is determined. That's what they're there for. You need to learn law because law protects your rights. Law doesn't give rights. Law protects rights. I know exactly what I speak of. I teach on this. I'm not worried about what somebody who's lawless is here to say. And by the way, I don't care if you're a lawyer or a judge, because I've come to find in helping many different people, we have testimonies of many people that we've been able to help with certain things. And I've come to find that as we've helped people and as I've grown, and by the way, I'm not a guru when it comes to sovereignty yet. I'm not even close to it, right? But I've been in this long enough and teaching this long enough to where I have found out, right, and listened to other people who have taught this and people for generations before us that have taught this. I found out that many judges don't know the law and many lawyers don't know the law. Right? A lot of lawyers will admit to you that for the first 5 years, sometimes 5 to 10 years, of their being a lawyer, they found that they really didn't know law. They were out there working on cases and didn't know law. So find it not strange when I'm sitting here, beloved brothers and sisters, friends, even enemies, if you feel like I'm your enemy, whatever, I found it to be true that many of them do not know the law. And so the first step to change is acknowledging that something is wrong or needs to be changed. Exactly. Right? Like I've come to find out that many of them do not know the law. You're sitting up there saying, "Oh, when so and so gets to the Supreme Court, they've got been voted there because they actually know law, but they're not there to make sure that you get this right and that right and that right. They're there to focus on law. Law protects rights. If you don't know how the law works, then you can't have your rights protected. But you sitting up here talking about, oh, this and that. It's black on black crime. It's white on white crime. It's white on black crime. There's a law to protect these things, and in this fictitious system, they have fictitious people, which means that they can come up with fictitious laws to hold you accountable to something that never should have been for you in the first place. And thank you for the love. I appreciate it. So you got this thing twisted. You think that the law is giving you rights, but you already have rights. Yep, and I'll say it 5 more if necessary. Right? You already have rights. The problem is you don't know how to protect them. The problem is you don't know how to protect them. See, you look at this and you don't even think about the straw man. Do you know that these 5 police officers, there's a 6th one as well, right? But you know these 5 police officers they keep showing you the picture of? Guess what? None of those, would it surprise you if I told you that no matter how much they keep saying these brothers are on trial, technically these men are not on trial? Did you know that? Yeah, but police officers don't know law as well. But hear what I'm saying. Hear me well. See, before people start getting into all these other arguments, are you aware that these people are not on trial? Do you know that? I don't even have to know the details of the case. Yeah, we will explain, but I want you to hear that. This is why they're not on trial, because you are never on trial. Your birth certificate is. Even if they try to put them on trial, they have to admit that they are the straw man. Your birth certificate is on trial. So you don't even comprehend what this is. You think that this is made up stuff. You think that this is just random stuff. Your birth certificate is on trial. You're never on trial. That's why you can walk into a courtroom. Now you need to know how to do this, right? I'm not here giving legal advice, right? But I am telling you things that are lawful. All right. You can choose to research and do some things or even take classes or whatever. But I need you to comprehend it. You can go into a courtroom and the judge says, hey, are you thus and such? You say, no, I'm here to represent thus and such. You say, are you Kofi Ofori? I'm here to represent Kofi Ofori. No, and they'll get mad. No, no. Are you thus and such? No, I'm here to represent Kofi Ofori. No, you must be Kofi Ofori. That's what it says here. No, I'm here to represent Kofi Ofori. I'm not that person. I'm here to make sure that I represent them to ensure that you don't infringe upon my rights as a private citizen. The only reason why they're going to be on trial is because they're going to basically sign away their rights to their humanity, and they're going to say, yeah, I am what you say I am. Right? I didn't even see what it was, but somebody muted you. I guess it must have been something offensive. Right? You hear what I'm saying? Right? Like the only reason why you're black in this system, see, black is okay. I'm black, Moorish, indigenous, whatever you want to put on me, mixed with a lot of different things. Avra, Yasral, Shwe, Ashanti, Igbo a little bit, Kush, Kemet. I'm a lot of different things, right? I comprehend what people mean, especially our Moorish brethren who are real quick to be like, black doesn't have the black, but Moor used to just mean black, by the way. So even that whole thing of be Moorish, well, which Moor are you? Which place do you come from? If you're saying you're from Morocco, what proof do you have that your people are actually Moroccan? You know, but I'll leave that alone, right? Because they don't even want to get into are you Carthaginian, this and that. They're just like, no, be Moorish. Like that's just the same as being black. But nevertheless, I know what they're saying because by law, Moor has supposedly has a standard, right? But go look up Black's Law Dictionary to find out what that actually means. Nevertheless, though, right? If you're talking about being black, if you go into a courtroom, if you go into a courtroom in the West, you should never call yourself black. You should never call yourself African American. You should never call yourself colored. You should never call yourself Negro. All the things that they tell you to fight, because according to the West, by definition, in their law books, so you got to see whose culture it is. According to their law books, those people have no rights. They're not real people. Yeah, I know that's the whole Moorish thing. When people say black is actually pale, black has never really meant actually pale, right? The only time it started being pale is when the West said that they wanted to start trying to change it into that, and they wanted to say that you have a recessive gene. And if that's what you go by, then just comprehending that system, you need to recognize that black is considered to be recessive. I don't consider it to be so, but I'm also a private citizen, so I don't worry about those things. I don't deal with the public that often. I only deal with the public when I feel like it. Right, but you got to comprehend where that comes from. For example, what is the original definition of an American? Somebody help me out. What is the original definition? Somebody in the comments on any other platforms. What is the original definition of an American? And thank you guys who are being part of the community. We appreciate you. Yes, I'm a non-citizen national. Right. So, what is the original definition of an American? See, you're missing the point. Before we can talk about what the black police officer did to the black boy, what is the original definition of America? A copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. Exactly. You said, from your understanding, the U.S. citizen can only come from Washington, D.C. No, U.S. citizen can only be controlled from Washington, D.C. We'll get into that. Kind of, sort of the same thing, admittedly. Right? But a original American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas by law. So those of us that are native, we should make sure we tap into that, know who we are, so we can be the actual Americans. We don't even know what that means, though. That's why we teach classes on sovereignty. Because people don't even, when I say that, people think, oh, you're just making it. No, like, look at your birth certificate. Going back to the straw man, look at your birth certificate. See, it is systemic Satanism. It is satanic what they're doing to you. It is a beast. You know, I didn't even realize until my wife and I were watching something the other day. I didn't even realize, you know, that the two limos that they're supposed to put you in when you're the president, right? Those two you know, basically tanks on wheels that they put the president in, those limos. You know, they call that the beast. If the president needs to be protected, he gets into the beast. Like they're telling you this stuff over and over again in front of your face. Right? But go back to that birth certificate, that straw man again. That birth certificate, you are considered to be what? You are considered to be stock. Your name on there says the stock. Your name on there says this is the stock that we have. This is the chattel. And around it is a border. They call it a bond. You are the stock and there's a bond. Now somebody says that doesn't make sense. Okay, question for you. How much in debt is, right? Because they're about to go past the debt ceiling, so they say, right? They keep saying that all the time. But we're supposedly about to go past the debt ceiling. How much debt is the United States corporation in right now? Question. How much debt? How much debt? That might come up with the birth certificate, right? I think they're saying 31, getting close to 31. Actually, we can find out right now. All you got to do is look up the US debt calculator, right? Let's just look it up. US debtclock.org. I said debt calculator, excuse me. Okay, so we're at 31 trillion 522 billion. Right. And I won't say we because that's not part of what I do. So let me just say y'all who still want to be citizens. You're 31 trillion 522 billion 220 million, but coming up on 800,000 plus dollars in debt. Question for you. Can anybody be that much in debt before and just keep asking for more money? Question for you. Can anybody can you have a friend that you gave $3,000 to, and then they say, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I know I'm supposed to pay you back. I just need 3,000 more." And then, "Oh, I'm sorry, pay you back. I need 3,000. Now I need 10,000. Now I need 15,000. Now I need 2,000. Now I need 1,000,000." After a while, you're probably going to tell your friend that if you don't pay me back at some point, we're done in this, right? But they want you to believe that there's actual debt, that you are literally 31 trillion. They want you to believe that you could go 31 trillion. Do you who are citizens? They want you to believe that somebody will let you go $31 trillion in debt. This is the belief system. They want you to believe that you are at $31 trillion in debt. Yet somehow, some way, you can continue to be in this, and they can continue to rule you. First of all, if somebody's in debt, what does that mean? Let me help you with this. See, you are having the wrong argument here. You're having the wrong argument. We're not thinking correctly because we haven't been taught to think correctly. We've been indoctrinated for incorrect thought. We're out of our mind. We're not in our mind. We're in somebody else's mindset. You ain't in your right mind. You hear what I'm saying? You're not in your right mind. You don't even see the beast. You talk about all the stuff about the beast in Revelation 13. It says that beast is going to cause you to not be able to spend money and buy food. Y'all sitting up here seeing carton of eggs going for $6. We just had a meetup, and one of the people at the meetup, they were talking about how their parents used to say, "Oh, it's crazy. You try to buy chickens and stuff now." And then they said, "Oh, it's not so funny anymore, is it?" Because the eggs getting out of control, ain't they? It's not your debt if you're not a citizen. Right? And that's not just as simple as getting a piece of paper. You got to live this thing. You said, didn't America come from a name? No, it was called the Americas before Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci actually is great friends with Christopher Columbus. Go look that up. That's an interesting hole to go down, right? So if you're a copper colored person, by the way, and this is somewhat copper colored, it's getting back, right? Because it's not as shiny, right? But you can see as it darkens in, this is copper colored. So this is what the original definition of American was by the people who came over here and started making slaves, going all the way back to Squanto. You know, to Squantum, he didn't just randomly speak English because it was some blessing from the Christian God. He spoke English because he was a Spanish slave, and then he was an English slave, and then he was able to come back. This is the definition of American. They had to be copper colored and indigenous to the Americas, not just copper colored. They had to be copper colored and indigenous, right? But see, we don't recognize these terms. We don't even look for that because you haven't been trained to. You've been told not to look for it. You've been told it's not important. It doesn't matter. Melanin doesn't matter. Color doesn't matter. This and that or whatever. But if you call yourself colored, you're not an actual citizen. You're not an actual person. You're not real according to law, right? But you can't go $31 trillion in debt. So how are they paying their debt? If they're not really 31 trillion in debt, now you got to ask yourself, how do they pay their debt? See, once again, you see this as 5 police officers, but you don't recognize that this is a system. It is a systemic Satanism going on here. If it was, and it was systematically put in place, what's the difference? Systematic means somebody did it on purpose. Systemic means it runs on its own. This system runs on its own the way it's supposed to. Look up Willie Lynch letter. And even those who argue, I don't even believe that Willie Lynch letter is real. Okay, see if the stuff in it that they said are things they actually practiced, and then still learn from it. Don't be so intellectually astute that you cannot actually look at something in a sensical and practical manner. Not practical manner, excuse me. Right. And thank you for the love. Thank you for those who are coming in, being part of the community. We appreciate you today. We really, really do. So many of y'all, I can't even keep up with the names. I'm trying to keep up with the names and comments on all the platforms. That's why I'm doing this a lot. But I thank you guys for being on, right? So if you're not $31 trillion in debt, how do you pay a debt to somebody else? How is that debt being paid? Let's go back to what we were talking about with the corporations that we call citizens. Let's go back to the conversation we were having earlier about prisons. When somebody goes to prison, what do? Yeah, they put us up for collateral, right? So when we go back to prisons, what do? A greatest risings to you as well. Thank you. If they put you in prison, what are you in prison to do? You are there to pay your debt to society. Are you not? Now, guess what? By law, everybody who's in debt is a slave, and everybody that's a slave is in debt. I know you didn't think that. I know you didn't think that through. You didn't know that. But if you are in debt, you are a slave. If you are a slave, then you are in debt. That's why you can be $1 million slave and not even know it. Because if you're still in debt to somebody else, then you're still a slave. I don't care how much money you make. That is how law works. Once again, I'm not here to give legal advice. It's recorded twice now, me saying that, right? But I'm here to tell you how law works. Go research it for yourself. See if I'm lying to you. If you are in debt, you are a slave. If you're a slave, you are in debt. That's why you need to make sure that you get the burden of proof off you and make sure somebody else tells you that you're not in debt. If a debt collector calls me and says, I'm collecting debt, I have to be honorable. Every sovereign, every real, true sovereign has to be somebody who honors the law, right? And honors my word, honors my commitment. So if I say, hey, I'm going to pay this, or I'm going to do that, or I should have done this, I should have done that, right, according to law, or I literally just can't pay you, whatever, fine. If I can't pay you, but if you mess up the contract with me, if you're a phone company, you mess up my contract and I stop paying, telling them why they mess up the contract and write them lawfully letters that say that, hey, this is what you've done, and they won't accept it, and they try to get it from me, then they send it to a debt collector, right? The debt collector is trying to make a slave out of me. I decided to be free and free myself from that contract because of the dishonorable nature of the person on the other side of the contract. When the debt collector calls me, they had to buy the debt. So the debt collector is actually in service to what? To the corporation. Because the corporation will pay the debt collector back, whether I pay them or not. But if I decide to pay them, not only will the corporation pay them or make sure somebody else pays them back, and there's slavery throughout perpetuity, throughout the universe, right? They'll make sure that somebody pays them back, but also they'll make sure that I have to pay them. They're double dipping. That's not even lawful. And even if I do want to do something with the original company and not have it go to that phase where I tell them they can kick rocks, because I know you had to pay for the debt, so I'll let you go ahead and keep the debt. I can still use a negotiable instrument. So if I say I can't afford to pay you 500 right now, but I can pay you 50, and they say no, we don't want the 50. We're just going to go ahead and say that we're going to take your vehicle, or we're going to take whatever it is and repossess it. No, you can't, because I offer you a negotiable instrument. If you decide not to take the negotiable instrument, that means that I'll see you in court, and I'll go ahead and have the judge look at, what is it, UCC 603B, and which says that if I offered a negotiable instrument and you wouldn't take it, that right, or you didn't even respond when I sent you a letter about it, that means that your non-response, it means that you are guilty, because you already did, since you didn't respond after a certain amount of time, 21 days to be exact, right? 10 working days. After 21 days of you not responding, well, guess what? That means that now, since you didn't respond, you just went ahead with what I said. See, they do this to you, but you don't know how to do it to them. This is a satanic system. You got to be in the system, but not of it. You got to be in the system, but not of it. If you want to go ahead and take my debt collection company, you can, because they were out of line. They were out of pocket. And then I'll go ahead and make sure that I call Equifax or get in touch with TransUnion or whoever it is, and we'll handle it. And I'll even make sure, hey, let me make sure that all you things match. Oh, wait a minute. TransUnion, you say one thing. Equifax, you say something else. You guys say something else. Even if it's a slight difference, you know that's not lawful. You guys are messing up my credit, because you say my credit's here, my credit's here, my credit's here. Well, that means by law, all of y'all are lying, because none of y'all are telling the truth. If none of y'all are telling the truth, I go then to the United States Corporation and I say, hey, you know, these people that work for you, they're not treating me correctly as far as telling the truth about me. And the United States Corporation has to cancel whatever it is, remove it from all that stuff off of my stuff. And I start from square one. I'm trying to say all this to now get back on point. To get back on point, which is, you don't know how the system works. You think that police officers serve the people, but police officers serve the people who form your opinions. And that is your issue. You think that the police are supposed to serve you. That's what you say, protect and serve, but they don't protect and serve you. They say the same oath that I had to say when I went into the United States military. This is the oath, the same oath the president has to say on down. I, put your name there, will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's the corporation, right? Against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. You missed it. I, put your name there, will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, that's the corporation, against all enemies, no matter what your color is, no matter what your creed is, no matter what your belief system is, no matter what you do, I must defend the Constitution, not the Constitution of the United States. I used to think it said that. I was supporting and defend the Constitution of the United States. See, the Constitution of the United States is different than the Constitution of the United States of America. Start reading the Constitution and read up until the 13th Amendment. It's all uppercase C for citizens. Those are people that can be sovereign. But then after that, the 14th Amendment on, it's a lowercase c for citizen. That means you're owned. What happened to the 14th Amendment? I want y'all to think outside the box. Stop letting them inform what your perspective is. What happened at the 14th Amendment? This is why you got to know law. You hear what I'm saying? This is why you got to know how law works. What happened in the 14th Amendment? 13th Amendment didn't say that slavery was over. It just said that you can become chattel slaves if you're arrested. What happens in the 14th Amendment? See, they taught you reverse. They taught you that all this thing worked to your benefit. They told you the 13th Amendment freed slaves. It didn't. The 14th Amendment, it allowed black people to become citizens. Kind of. And then the 15th Amendment, they told you now you can vote. So happy days, even though our sisters couldn't vote until women's suffrage. And even then they were fighting against them. Ask Sojourner Truth. Sojourner Truth, she tried to fight with white sisters, and the white sisters told her that she wasn't supposed to be there. That's why she only spoke for 5 minutes when she gave her famous "Ain't I a Woman" speech. and listen to what she's saying. Ain't I a woman too? Wasn't I a slave? Didn't I have babies? That man over there says that you should take care of white women when they come out of carriages and lay your coat down and make sure they don't have to get in the mud. But don't no man do that for me. Ain't I a woman too? She wasn't saying ain't I a woman for all women. She was talking about why aren't black women considered to be women? That's why a lot of black sisters still today say they ain't with feminism. At least give me womanism. It's not perfect, but it's better than feminism. Y'all out here thinking that Susan B. Anthony was your friend. Y'all can't wait for Susan B. Anthony. What is it, born day, December or whatever? Y'all can't wait for Susan B. Anthony's born day to come up and talk about how she loved all women. But Susan B. Anthony said it like this. She was asked, hey, would you fight for the rights for black people to be able to make sure that their votes are being taken care of? Because even though black men can vote, they're still oftentimes prevented from it. She said, I would rather get my right arm, right? She said, I'd rather have my arm cut off than to make sure that this black beast could vote. Go look for it. Because she's part of a system. Y'all think that women's suffrage was for all women, but remember, you weren't even considered to be a human being. Said more race baiting. That's why you missed it. I said white and black people all together. They're using the same thing that they used to just get us to be about white and black. Now they use it to be able to have you against each other when the system has all of you against one another. But you still don't want to hear that because you can't hear past that. I don't want reparations. May I tell you this? Let me say it like this. We deserve reparations, but I know they're not coming. And I believe we should have inward reparations. Let's start doing things for ourselves. Because only you look somebody eye to eye when you stand on your own 2 feet. If you have to keep being in a wheelchair and being pushed around by somebody else, then you don't deserve the freedom you look for anyways. It's getting to a certain point where you got to stop asking for somebody, because especially when people come on here like that and are like, hey, well, you just more race baiting. No, I literally just said that white people have been tricked too. You can't have racism unless the overseer thinks that he's better than the slave. When the reality is that the overseers lived in the same type of conditions that the slaves lived in. You hear what I'm saying? But you got people with an overseer spirit on here. You got people with an overseer spirit on here. You hear what I'm saying? In your mind, you think that you're better than somebody else. So you think you're an overseer. By the way, that's what the house Negro is too. You ain't nothing but overseers. You ain't nothing but house Negroes. White folk out there who think it's about white versus black, or that black people are race baiting and stuff. You ain't nothing but a house Negro, right? You ain't nothing but a house Negro. Just because your skin is white don't mean that you ain't a house Negro. And just because your skin is black don't mean you ain't an overseer. You ain't nothing but the same thing. You said y'all talk so much but can't even get out here and help with these out of control boys. Check our record and see who you're talking to first. Go to the website and see what we do. Check our record across the world and then come back and talk to me about that. I agree with you. There's many people that talk, but see, I can also see that you're somebody who can talk a great game about somebody, and you obviously don't check out to see who people are. Right? So I would agree with you that there's many of us who don't make sure that they take care of these out of control boys, but we're not one of them. And it's interesting that your name is Mrs. Tom. You probably did that on purpose, right? To be able to say that you're proud to be an Uncle Tom, even though Uncle Tom was the hero, but you really should have called yourself Mrs. Sambo. Sambo was the Antichrist spirit, so to speak, for us as black folk. But yeah, check my record. Right? Check our record. Check my wife's record. Check to see what we're doing for our community, and then you can come back and talk to me about black on black crime. You see, and that's why you got to be sovereign. You got to be private. You got to be separated from a system that tries to say we can check you because we can go ahead and tell you who you are. If you don't know who I am, then I'm not worried about what you think about it. I'm worried, I'm empathetic to it, but I can't let it control me. You said I'm robbing people? Sure. Okay. If that's what you want to call it. If that's what you want to call it. But check the record to make sure that it goes by robbing. Now, when I give people truth, you call it robbing too. For the community and from the culture, it seems to be what you're representing. So feel free to go ahead and continue to call it robbing if you want. In that case, yeah, I rob a lot of people. Call me Robin Hood. Because I rob a lot of the mindset that was taken from us, and I give it right back to the poor. Whichever way you want to take it. See, people don't like it when they're not in control. People don't like it when they're not in control. That's the issue that people are having. People aren't mad just because on here. People are mad about this because somebody's willing to say, you don't control me anymore. I got it. I got out, and I want my people to get out. I don't want my people to be part of the same system. And they get upset because if my people aren't part of the same system, then how can they continue to control you? I already know what the issue is. Your emotional response is not because I haven't said anything that's true. Your ad hominem is not because I haven't said anything that is incorrect apologetically. Your Dunning-Kruger effect has nothing to do with whether I indoctrinated you or not, right? I'm not the person who indoctrinated you. I literally just said it don't matter what the color of your skin is. If you're a white overseer, right? You're the same as a house Negro. If you're a black house Negro, then you're the same as an overseer. You're the same. You hear what I'm saying? But people can't hear that because you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're white, you're black, you're an American, you're proud to be an American, you're this, you're that. You can't tell me anything. I pledge allegiance to the flag, which is a standard, by the way, of the United States of America, which is not a corporation, and to the republic, not the democracy, but the republic that's a kingdom for which it stands, right? You understand that one nation, you're a part of that nation under God. That's not even Elohim, that's whatever you want it to be, indivisible with liberty. That means you're allowed to do certain things and justice for all. All who? All the people who are part of the same republic that you are. But if they're not part of that same republic and they're not willing to kill or come against any enemy, both foreign and domestic, on behalf of the republic and your God, then you are ready to kill them off. And you don't like that somebody will talk to you about that, but that's what it is. And I'm excited to be able to teach this because a lot of people need to know how to come out of this mindset. See, they don't like it like me. I'm a Bible believing brother that knows that before the Bible was changed with iconoclasm, it was by a people who needed to be free from the same stuff that we're going through today. They can't handle it that somebody can use the Bible and no law, because a lot of y'all people don't even live by the law. You say you live by the Bible. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. Your Jesus, who you talk about, that's what you call him, even though that's not his name. He was out here telling y'all about racism. Read about the women at the well. Read about the Samaritan women. Read about the centurion guard. They had people who hated people, called them dogs. That was half breeds. You weren't even full Israelite. He was talking about racism, and you can't even see it. But God bless America. God bless America. You don't even see it because you don't know the culture. Yeah, my people out here died, right? For a lack of knowledge. And what's the next part say? It's not because you have not had the knowledge given to you. It says it's because you have rejected it. Why people are surprised in Texas or in Florida or wherever where people don't want to teach the truth? They're not supposed to. If you teach the truth, what you make the system crumble. If the truth is that they don't care what color you are, what religion you are, what sex you are, they don't care about any of that. Matter of fact, they'll let you keep changing up stuff and thinking that there's lawful definitions for this stuff. You know why they don't care if you call yourself LGBTQ plus? Because at the end of the day, when you come into society, they're gonna say, "Are you male or female?" That's what the law is. They don't care what you call yourself. When you get in there, you're a slave. You're gonna have to give up all that stuff, all that independence, how you look at yourself, whatever the case. They don't care. They got you arguing about it. They got you voting in preachers. Come on, in Georgia, y'all was doing all this stuff to vote in a preacher who, up until he was time for him to start changing his rhetoric, right? He was a preacher that would have told you that he thought LGBTQ plus could have kicked rocks. Now y'all couldn't wait to vote for him because you need to make sure that he was in there instead of the evil Herschel Walker. Both of them are nonsense. Both of them that lied to you. Neither one of them cares about you. And when he goes to the Senate, what is he going to do to put in place for you? Not a daggone thing. Not a daggone thing. Not a thing. What has he done for you so far? Well, he said this and he spoke up for what has he done for you? Well, Bernie Sanders, he was going to do, what has he done for you? Well, Donald Trump said he was going to come into office and what has he done for you? You know what I'm saying? Well, Obama, he came in there and he did, what has he done for you? Well, Bill Clinton, he's really the first black president. What has he done for you? Well, Hillary Clinton, when she was going to get it, what has she done for you? Well, when Condoleezza was in it, Condoleezza owns part of this sports team. What has she done for you? You said, can you give me a list of things Trump did? Fine. Give me a list of things that Trump did and then tell me how they helped my people to be able to make sure they did something. Because even if he did stuff as far as law, like, I don't care either way you want to go. How about this? Trump actually reversed something, even though he wasn't doing it for righteous reasons. But if you know how law works, use it for your benefit. Trump did stuff that Clinton messed up. Clinton, when he did the three strikes and you're out, based off of Ronald Reagan flooding this community with drugs, based off of Richard Nixon not liking the fact that hippies and black people were having babies together and stopping the racism thing, right? And not like, and so he used weed as something that they were using all the way back into the times of Calvin Coolidge and all those people back there, because people didn't want you to get actual weed because they couldn't tax it, correct? So Trump actually, when he reversed some of the stuff, he actually helped to make sure that people that were in prison could have their habeas corpus. Because when Clinton said three strikes and you're out, and all these black and white folk just went with it, including Republicans, because don't forget, y'all didn't like Dan Quayle. You didn't want to vote for Clinton because y'all didn't think he was strong enough on crime. He went back and he killed what you would have called back then a retarded, or we would say today somebody with mental health issues, but you would have called him back then a retarded black man who was on death row, who probably didn't do what he did. And then all of a sudden Clinton, to make sure that you dealt with these super predators, right? Joe Biden was involved in that too. Hillary Clinton was involved in that too. And a lot of black folk were lifting that up. And then all of a sudden, what happens? Right? Trump gets to a point Clinton, when he did that, he got rid of your habeas corpus. So if they did you dirty with the three strikes and you're out, it didn't matter. You couldn't actually go back and say, hey, they did me wrong. When Trump changed some of the laws, which for certain rich folk and for some of his people or whatever, that he was, and Trump don't care about race either, because none of them really do. Trump is in a position where he care about green, right? But nevertheless, when he did that, he actually gave you the right to habeas corpus. So there's a lot of stuff that we could say any president did that falls into your benefit, but they're not doing it for you ultimately. That's why you have to know the law. Know the law instead of thinking these people are doing this for you, right? Know the law. Biden doesn't care about you. Biden cares about money. Biden is a false king. Remember, head of state is defined the same thing as a king, a queen, or an emperor, right? That's what head of state is, right? So he's a false king. Whoever the president is, he or she, if when we have a future she, right? They are false kings. They are false queens. They are false. And say why? Because they are controlled by the corporations. Do you not know that they can't, by law, in the Senate or in the Senate, nor or well, in Congress, or when it comes to the White House, the president, they can't make laws without having somebody who represents a corporation be there. Did you know that? Were you aware of that? Were you aware of that? See what I'm saying? The arguments don't make sense. You're arguing against a system that is systemic Satanism. Did you know that? Did you know what is the only building, at least on top, connected to the White House? No other building on top is connected to the White House except the Federal Reserve, which we told you they have this debt to, but they use you to pay off the debt. That's why you pay a debt to your society, right? That's the only building. Go there, right? I've been there plenty of times in my life. Go there to the White House. And the only building that you will see that has any connection to the White House is the Federal Reserve. Right? Matter of fact, if you've seen that, is it Olympus is burning or whatever movie it is where or I think it's the second movie, not the first one with Morgan Freeman, but whatever that second movie is, where the guy was out, he was trying to take care of the president's family. The wife ends up dying or whatever when they try to kill the president, and then they start coming in to try, and they have that big plane that's flying over and doing all that stuff or whatever. When the guy who played Leonidas or whatever, who by the way was a black Spartan, but we'll leave that alone. With the guy who played that character that y'all know from 300, when he leaves the Federal Reserve building, and he comes on over, he comes right over to the White House. That's right where it is. If you've never been there, you don't even know they're that close. Now, why is it that nothing else can really be that close to the White House, but they will publicly show you that the Federal Reserve building is connected to the White House? We talking about the Memphis police station situation right now, because it's not, because that's a micro sorry, yeah. Now I'm getting tongue tied. It is a micro issue, but that shows up one of many micro things that help us to comprehend the macro. No, law-abiding citizen that's the one that's him versus Jamie Foxx, isn't it? It's London is falling. Thank you. London is falling. Right. So you have to recognize, like, that's what actually happens. They are connected. By the way, right across, even though it's not historically was always called that, but right across the way, do you not know that there's a building called the Freedman Bank? Freedman Bank something something. Do you know what the Freedman Bank is? It's a shout out to the 14th Amendment. Those of us who realize that at the 14th Amendment something happened. Oh yeah, well the people of Sparta, we do this weird thing. The further back we go into the story of mankind, the darker we all get. Right? All of us are family, technically. We just don't act like it anymore. Right? But look across the way. No, I don't know about gang stalking as far as the terminology. Maybe I know what it means, but not the terminology off top. But look across the way if you get a chance and you go to the White House, right? And look across the way, you'll see this thing that says Freedman Bank. They just renamed it recently in time. When it says Freedman Bank, it's talking about there was something called the Freedman Bank. It was for freedmen. The 14th Amendment didn't free anybody by making you a citizen. It actually caused you to give up your freedom to become a citizen. Did you know that? Right? Did you know that? Do you know what a freedman is? Some of you are freedmen. If you want your um I'm sorry, your reparations that you're fighting so hard for, which by the way, the president never gave you. It was a general. General Sherman gave you that, and he didn't give it to you because he liked you. He gave it to you because it was going to help him to mess up the Confederacy. And guess why he gave it to you? They had a conversation, right? There were all these free black slaves following him around as they were destroying Georgia and Atlanta and all this stuff. All these black slaves were following him around. He sends a wire back to the White House. He says, "How do I deal with these people?" They say, "Hey, talk to them." So they have a conversation. They sit down. And who represented us as a people? It was four black pastors. As much as we think this stuff didn't matter, and as much as they think this is the white man's religion, see, you don't know. Go to Savannah, Georgia, and go look at the carvings, that are there. As far as the stuff that's in Hebrew cursive, because your people spoke Hebrew. Even the freed slaves, a lot of them spoke Hebrew. A lot of them spoke many different things, right? But you think that this stuff was existed only because white people made it up, because you're into these weird Hamitic theories that now existed when they wanted to make you slaves in Negro land and stuff like that. And you don't even know who the freed slaves are. You don't even know who the first people who were called Negroes are. As far as the first people to go into slavery, you don't even know that they're now called Sephardic Jews. And when they talked about the Sephardic Jews, they mentioned the Sephardic Jews as being what? They mentioned them as being tall, swarthy. Look up what the word swarthy means if you don't know what that means. SWARTHY, and come back and holler at me if you think I'm lying. Right? They mentioned them as being tall, swarthy, dark skin. They said they looked like the people who lived in Canaan. They said they looked like the people who lived around the Sea of Reeds, or what you would now call the Red Sea, right? Even though they're two different places, right? They said that they looked like West Africans. And then they went looking for them after they started selling them to slavery. They went to a place where they knew these tribes lived, and they called the place Negro Land, which is on a map that you can look at. Even if you go onto the United States website for the Library of Congress, right? You can go there and look at Negro Land and zoom in and see who's right there. And if you're somebody who's trying to call in or do this or whatever, if I don't know who you are, I'm probably not going to answer. If you'd like to tell me what you like to talk about, we can talk about it for a hot second. But I've got other things to be able to talk about today, right? So you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that. You don't know what an Arabic person looked like. You think Arabic means a group of people. You didn't realize that Arabic used to just mean nomadic. It wasn't until certain people tried to say that we're going to be Arabic and they happen to follow the Quran, and sometimes not even follow the Quran correctly, that now you think that Arabic means, oh, you got to be Muslim. That has nothing to do one with the other. That's why you think that Egyptians are the people of Kemet. All I got to do is change your belief system, politics, poli. You were the people with an opinion, the poles. And you think that your opinions run anything. But once again, what is capitalism? It is a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. The trade and industry is wielded by the owner of private corporations for profit and not the state, which is the government. You are not governed by your state. You are governed by the corporation. If you don't believe so, what did Black Lives Matter actually achieve? When they wanted to achieve this stuff, what did they achieve? They achieved getting corporations to stop supporting the government. And once the corporation stopped supporting the government because they weren't getting money in their pocket, the government changed the law. You hear what I'm saying? And we're glad you settled on this too. And shalom, peace be upon everywhere. Barakallah, cham yachafa. We thank you all for being on today. You're going to learn today. You came to the right place. See, you think it's just about 5 black officers on 1 black person. This is a system. It is systemic Satanism. This is something that goes past just the United States. Do you know why? Do you know how America came to be? Oh, of course I know. I mean, you know that there was this person that came and Christopher Columbus, or no, it wasn't Christopher Columbus. It was actually this. Do you know how it came to be the same way that Australia came to be? Y'all got this thing twisted. Australia and America both started off as English prison colonies, right? That's how this started. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. They didn't have enough space. They didn't have industrial prison complexes. They were trying to kill people at such a massive rate that they couldn't even kill everybody that was going on there. They couldn't afford to. They had people that were paying to come to events to watch all these people die all day, right? And they couldn't. They were killing little children for stealing cups. And while they were watching children steal cups, other children were pickpocketing them. You had to pay to stay in prison over there. Your family had to pay up. You had to have a job, right? But they didn't have a prison industrial complex yet. It wasn't enough. It wasn't really money like that in it, not yet. So what did they do? They sent them to Australia. They sent them to England. They sent them to what you call the West Indies. They sent them to what you call India. These are prison industrial complexes that grew out of this because they just basically sent them to prison colonies. We can't afford to have you over here. Go break rocks over here. Well, let's put you on this boat. Hopefully it makes it over there. You call it the Puritans that came over. That's what you call them now. They didn't call them Puritans back then. These were people who took what they did. You know, you remember, that's why I go back to religion. People say, oh, no, religion has nothing to do with it. Religion has just about everything to do with it. Once again, religion literally means a legion of people that repeat the same thing. That's what religion is. Yeah, we're most definitely the lost Israelites, or scattered. I don't know if we lost, but, scattered for sure. We're lost in the mindset, right? But your religion is what you do every day as a group of people. That's religion. You think religion is what you call yourself. See, once again, what you call yourself, a name is an authority. So whatever you call yourself is what you authorize, right? But a religion is what you do with that authorization. You hear what I'm saying? Like, this stuff is set right in front of you. The problem is not what you think it is. You think, once again, it's just 5 black police officers on 1 black, but no, it's a system. It is systemic Satanism. That's what it is. When they sent them over, when the Puritans came over from England, this is what happened. The English king didn't like the fact that the Puritans, what you call Puritans now, thank you for the love. The English king didn't like the fact that Puritans were taking it too far when they had this new thing called Protestantism. Now, for those of you who don't know, you had the followers of the way, which came from an Israelite religiosity, then followers of the way who were being killed. Then all of a sudden, eventually, they started having something called Christianos, where they started mixing and matching the iron and clay. For those of you familiar with what I'm talking about, that's Daniel chapter 2, right? And started pushing out some people. That's Daniel chapter 7, right? For those who know what I'm talking about. But for the rest of you, basically, you had a mixture of Rome with this religion, right? That these we as a particular people upheld. A lot of people, yep. We talked about the fact that there's a white man as well, yeah. So we had all those things, right? And then later on, what happens? Well, later on, what happens is what? Is they push them out, right? I'm sorry. Rather, you basically end up with the Justinian decree in the 400s. Really, it doesn't become official till 538 AC, but in the 400s, the Justinian decree has Eastern Rome, which becomes what you call Orthodox Christianity, and then you have Western Rome, which is the Roman Catholic Church. Right after that, then the Roman Catholic Church has power, but they start to lose some of it. You get King Henry VIII, who doesn't want to be a Roman Catholic person anymore because he thinks that he should be able to kill or divorce as many of his wives as he wants. The Pope's not having it, right? So then all of a sudden he separates from Roman Catholicism. When he separates from Roman Catholicism, what happens after that? What happens after that is they become Protestant. There was a Protestant movement. They take over it. They make it their own, right? And then what happens when they come over to take over that movement? They basically make King Henry VIII the first pope of Protestantism. That's why every Protestant, I don't care what you call yourself, you all have a pope, right? The King of England right now is your pope. Before that, it was the Queen. That's the way that works, right? So now that's the pope. That's why you can say they have no power in certain places, like in London, the crown has no authority there, right? But still, there are the king of England. They're talking about that. That's supposed to be the pope. In our in culture, every king or queen has to be a priest, and every priest has to be royalty, royal priesthood. That's where that comes from, right? You are a royal priesthood. That's what that saying means, right? You said Catholicism and Orthodoxy are different. Yeah, all Christian. Well, once again, because Orthodoxy was when Justinian went on that side to the east, right? That's why you have a lot of Eastern influence on Christianity in the East, right? Orthodox, and you have a lot of Western influence on the West, right? But out of that, the Protestantism thing. So King Henry VIII becomes the first person, right? Then his son became the second pope. Queen Mary, Bloody Mary, she becomes the third pope. Or she technically not the third pope. She tried to go back to Roman Catholicism, but then she died without an heir. Her sister therefore takes over the throne, brings it right back. She becomes the third pope technically, right? And so now, and they changed the language to English as a FU to the Pope, because the Pope and them were saying, hey, we all need to be in Roman type mindset. We need to deal with Greek language, and we need to deal with Latin, which was part of the whole Protestant movement, even with Martin Luther. For those of you who are Lutherans, you're familiar with some of that, even though we mismanaged that thought, how that worked as well a little bit. Right. So now, out of that, later on, you have this Protestant movement that's saying that we don't think you guys are doing things correctly. And out of that, you see that the king kind of gets upset with these, or I'm not Protestant movement, I'm sorry, this Puritan, now you call it a Puritan movement. He got upset with these people that were basically zealots in their eyes. They kicked him out. They wanted to kill him. The people ran, I think, to where the Deutsch were. The Deutsch started having interaction with them, and their children started acting like Deutsch people, and they were so afraid. They were so racist against Deutsch people. They were like, oh my greatness, they're going to be tainted. They're going to start acting like them. So they ran back to the king, even though he might kill them. They said, please allow us to be able to go to this prison colony called America. So the king put them on this rickety boat, right, that you think is this great thing, the Mayflower. He put them on a rickety boat that had almost capsized before a couple times, right? And basically was like, okay, if y'all make it, y'all make it. And he was hoping and praying they would just be done, and that'd be the end of it. They made it over to America, and they started a prison colony. They were on a boat with other prisoners as well. And that's why you had them have prison behavior towards the natives that were here. And that's why prison behavior still exists. The biggest prisoners, the biggest criminals are the people that are in charge. Why? Because those are the people that were brought over here. America, just like Australia, just like a lot of the West Indies and other places, they sent these Englishmen that they couldn't afford to fit in their prisons. That's how you got to this place. You think that it's once again about black, white, this, that, or whatever. Oh yeah, they it was prison colonies all over the place. That's why you have people who are Indian, like not Native American. I'm talking about actual Indian bloodline who are in the West Indies heavy and try to go back, just like we try to go back to Africa. They try to make pilgrimages back to India to try and figure out where their family members are, just like we do. Just like we do. Because these people were sent to prison colonies. They were told they weren't going to be slaves, but they actually ended up being slaves. They were just under the name of indentured servitude. It's a spirit. It's not just see, when you start getting this, that's why I'm saying it's a religion, a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting different results, y'all told me before that that's supposed to be insanity by somebody you guys lift up called Albert Einstein. That's what y'all told me. That's what y'all tell me. That insanity is supposed to be somebody doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, here you have people, you guys are now in a prison colony. Go back to the 14th Amendment. Those people who had the conversation with General Sherman, and he was trying to talk to them, and they were former slaves, but they had no more slave owners, right? The slave owners are gone. Some of them left and were able to take slaves and actually took them down to Brazil, which is why you see Confederate flags in Brazil, and they still have Confederate gatherings and get-togethers, right? But not everybody. But not everybody. You said opposing views will be blocked. I don't think I wrote that. But if you don't like the fact that people are supposed to have some decorum and act like they have sense, you know, we must be productive in that. So if your whole thing is to give ad hominem and not give any kind of apologetics, then sure it is. You said I did. I wrote that opposing views will be blocked. Okay, if you can screenshot it to me so I can make sure that I change it, if you don't mind. If you can screenshot it to me, right? It probably doesn't just say opposing views will be blocked, by the way. It probably says something along the lines of how you doing, Sister Laura? Probably says something along the lines of, if you're somebody who's giving ad hominem and doing things. Matter of fact, we say all the time that opposing views, you can question and do whatever if you come into a place where it's there. Now, the cultural based convo, distractions, disruptions, and disrespect will be muted. Right, but you never seen. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen anywhere where I've typed in that opposing views are just blocked just because they're in opposition. Pretty sure, pretty sure. But anyways, it's interesting that the person who's like, you wrote it, and like, I'm pretty sure I didn't because I'm the one that wrote it. But whatever. But nevertheless, like, we don't recognize this. So when you get back to that 14th Amendment thing, you got to comprehend that was something that was made because you were allowed to be free. 4 black pastors who are the ones that sat down with General Sherman. Lincoln didn't give permission, right? It was 4 black pastors who sat down with General Sherman. General Sherman said, "What do you guys want?" And they said, "Look, we're not worried about this. We've had a rough time with you guys. We don't want you guys to give us anything or anything like that, but except for what we feel we deserve. We feel that we deserve because of what we've done, who we've been, and our story. We believe that we should have the right to have land, to be able to make sure that we teach our children what they should be taught, to be able to make sure that we feed them ourselves, and make sure we can be separate from the system." General Sherman heard this. General Sherman loved it. General Sherman respected it, even though he didn't like black people. He respected it. And he said, "Okay, 40 acres and a mule." That's where 40 acres and a mule came from. It came from you deciding that you need to be separate from the system. So if you want true reparations, you want to be separate. See, a lot of people talk about reparations. See, a lot of people who are against reparations, they know what they're talking about. They don't want you to be separate from this system. This system is supposed to be at ease with your being scorned. That's Psalm 123, verse 4. Right. So when they gave you the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment said that you could be enslaved again, even though as long as you were arrested first. And then only what? Only people who had power, only the people who worked for the corporations, only the Senate, right? Or somebody like that, or even a judge possibly could pardon you from it. Right. But the 14th Amendment comes behind it and says that those of you who are born on what's considered to be American soil, right? This new American that took over from the copper-colored American, with the Boston Tea Party put on blackface and started saying they're the Americans. Because remember, the original American is defined as a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. They literally just put black on their face and then put some makeup on it and said, "We're the Americans," and that sufficed for it to be law. So you want real reparations, you got to be willing to be set apart. That's called holiness. That's called holiness. So if you want real reparations, you got to be set apart. What sets you apart? In law, the original American was what? A copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. If you really want to say I'm real, I'm the real American, you got to say, well, I'm copper-colored and I'm indigenous. I'm copper-colored and I'm indigenous. And this is shined up copper. This isn't even copper in its true form. You can see that some of it's starting to turn into its real color, right? But real copper, right? I'm copper-colored and indigenous. That's not our standard. That's what the standard they set. That's the standard that they set up. You got to be copper colored and indigenous. That's what it says, right? So if you want reparations, you got to become a free. A lot of you should look into becoming freedmen. Study what that is. The freedman was somebody who became not an American, but somebody who was so to be a freed. See, a copper color, a real American is copper colored to American. A freedman is somebody who actually who actually was a slave and ended up being qualified for 40 acres and a mule. And then the 14th Amendment took away his rights because they took away his land. When they took away his land, they got clever. And they said, okay, how do we stop? Because the Freedmen Bank, going back to what I was talking about, that building across from the from the White House, and I know that building was not the actual Freedmen Bank, but just hear what I'm saying for reference points. You can look up this stuff to see if America is worth, the United States corporation knows about your story more than you do. Right? There was a Freedmen Bank. Frederick Douglass was in charge of it. He almost went bankrupt trying to save it when after Lincoln died, and then all of a sudden you had Johnson, right? Andrew Johnson come right behind that, and Andrew Johnson was a wimp who got pushed. Oh, was a pushover, and so the Southern white folk who were never supposed to even be given rights again for a while because they were considered to be traitors. They started giving them all their rights back. They started getting right back into Congress. They started taking away the rights of the freedmen, and they started taking away their land. And so as you take away their land and these freedmen have babies born on American soil, it now means that those freedmen are no longer freedmen, but they are born into a different government. When you were a freedman, you had a free government. You were a free people. But now that you're not a freedman born into something else, they changed the law. That's why your birth certificate became something, because guess what? Nobody cared where you were born from before that. They only cared who you were born from. Mhm. Come on. Come on. See, we gonna make this, we gonna make it make sense today. We gonna give you what's righteous. Righteous means right lawful standing, right legal standing. See, before there was a birth certificate, nobody cared where you were born. They cared who you were born from. Right? You don't get an inheritance because of where you're born. You don't get reparations because of where you're born. You get that because of who you're born from. You don't get an inheritance because of where you were born. You get an inheritance because of who you were born from. See, they ain't ready for it. Yeah. That's they not ready for it. Like you've been arguing the wrong thing. Black on black crime, right? Black people need to get their neighborhoods together. We need to make sure we get no, it doesn't matter where you're born, it matters who you're born from. Now watch this. It doesn't matter where your ideas are from. It matters who your ideas are from. And that's what we're talking about today, systemic Satanism. Right? Well, we teach people how to make sure they get sovereignty on paper. We teach them how to make sure that they state who they were born from. And we have to show them how to make sure that we put the code in there that they have clearly in front of you, but you don't know it till you see it. We have to make sure that they realize that, hey, don't say that you're from anybody who is a United States citizen. If you are, you're giving up your rights. You're saying you're from a slave. Who you're from is a slave. You're in debt. So you have no rights. At least not what you think you do. But but right, so don't focus on where the person's from. Oh, are they a U.S. citizen? Blah blah. No, no, no. We need to teach you how to fill it out to where it says who you're from. Oh yeah, we teach this all the time. We're in the middle of doing classes right now. We just started this semester in this is the third week is coming up this week. See, and that's why people get mad at you when you say, "Oh, I'm an Israelite." Like I have the DNA even E1B1A. Don't mess with it. You know what I'm saying? Like people get mad when you declare what is actually known that you don't know enough about it. So they get upset with you. They get frustrated. How dare you say and blah blah? And we're gonna come and we're gonna count down. Look, you can say whatever you want. I identify as what's lawful. So you learn law. That's what it's all about. It doesn't matter where you come from. It matters who you come from. We'll have that information up at the end of the live. If you can't stick around to the end of the live, I'll try to see if I can reach out to you. Okay. See, but it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters who you come from. We missed this because you were just taught I'm a United States citizen. What does that mean? United States is a corporation, as we were saying earlier, right? That literally means, see, this is why we got to break this stuff down in class, because I can say all this stuff. I'm not going to be able to repeat it enough times and write it out enough times that you guys would get it anyways in just one sitting. But hear what I'm saying. United States Corporation, 28 USC 3002 15A. That's 28 USC 3002 15A. That's 28 USC 3002 15A. This is USC 28 3002 15A. Once again, this is 28 USC 3002 15A, right? 28 USC 3002 15A. It declares to you, right, that the United States is a corporation. That is United States law. It's in the law books. I should do infomercials. Yeah, I've been looking at possibly lending my voice to doing some stuff like that too, right? But it declares it is lawful. The United States has no lawful or legal jurisdiction outside of it being a corporation, which means every corporation must have an owner. Do you hear what I'm saying? No, I definitely don't have a photographic memory, but I do pretty decent with some of the things that I get repetitive in me for, all right? But hear what I'm saying, right? Once again, you must have an owner to be a corporation. Here you are talking about there's no king, but you don't look at a king as an owner because you don't comprehend kingdom. You don't know how republics work. Every republic has an owner or owners. You cannot be a corporation without somebody who's on the board, right? Anybody ever started a corporation? You got to have a board. Come on, somebody, right? So if the corporation is there, who is your God? Who is the God that owns the corporation? Oh, now we got to get into it. See, you're looking at it just as far as black. You're not looking at a system of oppression. Who is the God? When they say God bless America, who is the God? Who are the gods? How do you become a god? Okay, well, it's a waste of time. You have a great day somewhere else. I hope that somebody else doesn't waste it, right? But who is the God? Who is the God that you serve? When you say God bless America, because they say it every time when they're going to give you the state of the union. That means the state. What is the state? That's the people. That's the government. So this, and what is this government? It's a corporation. So the corporation, right? The state or the corporation of the union. The union is a corporation. They're going to tell you what the corporation wants. Because you know, if you're in a corporation and you're invested in it, if you have shares in a corporation, then they have to every once in a while tell you what's going on with your shares. Come on. Y'all know this, right? And so I see you, Sister Dawn, right? The God of this corporation really can become anybody. But here's one of the first ones you got to start with. That's why they tell you, even though he's not technically your first president, they tell you who your first president, they tell you the first president is, right? He's not really the first president. There's 8 that came before him, and he tells you that he liked 2 of them while he wasn't the president. We have that on wax. We got that on record. We got them. He wrote that out, right? But who is the God of this system? The God of this system, well, they have it right there in Washington, D.C. It's in the name. It's in the name. There's power in the name, isn't there? Even though people said we shouldn't learn the names of things. Well, who is the union? Whenever the 50 states come together under the federal government, we're going to get there, right? Every state is a government within itself. That's why they have a right to say we'll obey what the God says, the federal government, or not. But it's in the title, District of Columbia, Washington District of Columbia. A lot of people don't know, right? But let's just think about this. What is the monument of George Washington look like? Unlike the other monuments where you actually see the men standing there, in there, or at least you see some model. Thomas Jefferson Memorial, they have him in there too, right? But unlike where you can see all the other guys, you don't see George Washington. You see what instead? When you go and you look at the Washington Monument, what is it? It is an obelisk. What is an obelisk? Where does that come from? They're telling you by law, you got to show people before you institute it. There's got to be somewhere somebody can read up and look on it. Right? Well, there's an obelisk in the Vatican too, and some people go there for the Vatican must own the DC, and the mindset of the Vatican is in DC. But it's even a little more complicated than that. There's also obelisks in Egypt, or really what was called Kemet. Now, but what is an obelisk? What is an obelisk? You see, we got to know what the obelisk is. An obelisk is a phallus. Thank you. It's a phallus. Oh no, Kemet had an obelisk way before the Greeks, right? It's a phallus. And it's idolized, it's sexualized. But see, the sexual energy was looked at as different. So it's a phallus. If you don't know what a phallus is a penis. I'd just rather say phallus than penis 75 times. So it's a phallus. Okay. Now this obelisk, it comes from who? Right? The obelisk is dealing with the story of Osiris and Isis. Right? It's dealing with Osiris and Isis. That's what we're dealing with. The obelisk is dealing with the story of Osiris and Isis, and therefore giving birth to Heru, or who you call Horus, the eye of Heru, the eye of Horus, and all that, right? So that's we're dealing with. See, so somebody will say religion has nothing to do with this, but why do you have a big phallus coming under Kemetic lore in the center of your capital? No, not necessarily the center, but somewhat centered. You had Osiris. Osiris was a big time netcher. You call them gods, but gods is Germanic deity. You might call them deities, but deities are really deists are really like Greco-Roman. Like in Yoruba they have Eureka. Anansi is different than Onyon Kapong, et cetera, right? So we had this belief system that when somebody says God, we think that God means the same thing, right? We didn't have gods, we had netchers, right? If you're talking about the Kemetic side of us, we had netchers, right? So you had the obelisk, right? And the obelisk comes from this story. You had Osiris, who the other netchers didn't like. They cut him into pieces and put him all over the place, right? They cut him into pieces, just put him all over the place. And as they cut him into pieces and put him all over in the place, what you said, God means creator, operator, and destroyer, according to people that are in the Germanic language, right? That's not something that is appeals to me. But if you choose to uphold Germanic principles and things like that, then for sure, yeah, you can worship gods. I don't worship God or gods. I worship Elohim. Elohim is a specific spirit. I believe to be the ultimate spirit. But once again, everybody has, the right to be able to believe whatever it is, and fight for whatever emotional tie that one might have, right? Well, you can make Odin a god, sure, if you want to, but Odin technically is not Germanic. But he's somebody who became grafted into Germanic stuff over time, so now he's become their god. You see that? People don't think about those things correctly. You know what I'm saying? So but I'm just putting it out there. This is a cultural perspective. It's just something you might not think about or whatever, right? Yeah, or Odin is Norse theology. So people into Norse theology, even though I know theology is not a Norse word, but I'm just saying if you're into something that's Norse, then you probably shouldn't be dealing with gods trying to make Odin that. That's a mismanagement. It's misappropriation, if you will, of culture. But people love to misappropriate to be able to make themselves right. We think about it just in black and white, but people misappropriate Elohim. They say, oh, Elohim just means God. No, Elohim would tell you don't worship God because there should be no other Elohims before me. So if you call me something that's outside of my title, then you automatically are disqualified to say that you're kingdom minded. But anyways, we can get into that later. That's not exactly where I'm at right now, right? But I'm just trying to give you perspective. So anyways, you have Osiris. I'll try to stay focused on this. So you have Osiris, who's in Kemet, right? Kemetic nature. And Osiris is somebody who the other netchers don't like. They cut him up, or they kill him, they cut his body into different pieces or whatever, and that's it. You have Isis, who is a part bird, part woman, which is why Horus or Heru, when he's born, he's going to have wings, right? Because his mother was part bird. That's where that comes from, right? So his mother is flying around. Isis is flying around, and she can't find her husband. All of a sudden, she starts seeing pieces and realizes her husband has been cut up, right? So now she grasps all the pieces and put them together to try and bring Osiris back together, but he can't. He has no life in him. Why? Because he's missing his phallus, so he's not complete again. So she makes a mock phallus, or what you might even call a dildo today. Keep it in 100. She makes this dildo and she puts it on him. And either, depending on what you believe, he either was a zombie or he still remained dead, but he could give life through his seed could shoot through, right? So whichever one version that you want to believe is still necrophilia. But regardless, she jumps on top of the obelisk, she jumps on top of the phallus, and she gets impregnated and then gives birth to Heru, Horus. That's the story of how it came to be, right? Now watch this. Yes, we know there were 6 officers and not 5. Thank you, right? So we said that several times. I'm with you, right? That's why we're talking about this thing that's systemic. Even that in of itself proves our point. But I'm with you. I got you. So, and all this stuff that we're talking about, right? Now we get to the place, and thank you for the love. Appreciate it. So now when we get to there, right? What is the story of Washington District of Columbia? Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. What is the story of Washington District of Columbia? You said, can you still inherit the kingdom if you're not using the right name? Depends on if you know better. If you know better and you still choose not to use it, I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in, but I would definitely say it's probably not looking that great to be able to kind of spit in somebody's face and say you're not going to use a name that you know is real, you know. But nevertheless, what is the story of Washington District of Columbia? We're dealing with a very similar story. Why? Because they just took the story and brought it over here. Right? So what is the story now? George Washington, he gets a phallus in recognition of him as the father. Now, what's important about this is, once again, what was Osiris? Osiris was a nectar that had been killed and split apart, and you couldn't find his phallus again. What did George Washington die of? See, somebody said religion doesn't matter. What did George Washington die of? I see what you did there, Detelio. Right? George Washington died of what? An STD, right? Of syphilis, right? You know, graping these slave women that he had out here and some of the slave men, because that's what you did to make sure that you kept things on track and kept people obedient. So he dies of syphilis. So he dies, and guess what? And how did, by the way, well, let me just keep going with this and finish the thought. Y'all can see that I get so caught up on sometimes the minute things that I might miss some of the stuff, and then I have to come back. So let me just stay focused. So he dies of syphilis, which means that he's missing something. So what do they build for him? They build for him what he's missing. And if the obelisk points outside of the ground, question, what is connected to every man's phallus? His body is connected, but what else is connected to every man's phallus? Every man is built in his with the sexual organs, as far as what you see on the exterior, with 2 things. You'll see a phallus, and what else do you see? Come on, somebody. This is simple. All right, come on, somebody. This is simple. Every man got phallus, and he's got seed. He's got testicles, right? Come on, somebody, right? So if he's got a phallus sticking up, and the rest, and it goes into the ground, what is in the ground? In the ground are seeds. Go over there, and you're going to see trees from even though they actually redid them so that they don't have the seeds come out, but you see the cherry, or the seeds don't are not able to give birth when they hit the ground, but you'll see the cherry blossoms and things like that, and you don't even think about it during that. That's a whole thing of seed that goes into the ground. So you have an obelisk sticking straight up attached to the seed, just like you would have had for who? You would have had for Osiris. Now, peak game. On the opposite end, when you look down the National Mall on the opposite end, and you're looking at the Congress building, right? The same building that everybody was so aghast with what happened in January 6, 2021, right? When you look down at that Congress building, what will you see there? You will see the Congress building, but what's on top? What's on top of the Congress building? Help me out. What's on top of the Congress building? Yep. The spirit of Columbia, the deity Columbia, a goddess, their goddess, actually a Greek goddess as well. Now you have Osiris, George Washington, you have Isis. And by the way, Columbia, she has wings. She's part bird. They're telling you the same story. Yes, but seeds come from trees, so the ground would be feminine as the seed goes into the ground. Nevertheless, we don't need to fight about male or female because even when it comes to spirit, spirits are really technically neither male nor female, nor is marriage given away in heavenly places, at least in our culture. In other cultures, they do what they want to do. They try to take earthly things and worship them in heavenly places. We try to take heavenly principles and worship them through our physical actions. Nevertheless, right? On top of it, see, we're missing the whole point. See, if we're not careful, we divide over this stuff and we're missing the point. Is that you're dealing in comedic stuff. People are telling you religion doesn't matter, but why do you have George Washington with an obelisk with his phallus hanging out, and y'all can't wait to go see it and go inside of his phallus? And at the same time, you see Columbia, who's supposed to be the highest thing built in Washington, D.C. When that building was built, nothing was ever supposed to be built behind her. That was the initial thing behind it. Right? So you have Washington, right? The phallus, Columbia, who's flying over top. Nothing can be higher than her. And then she lands on top of it. And then when she goes back on top, she's going to give birth. What's birthed out of Columbia? Anything that comes out of Congress. See, once again, you think this is not spiritual. You think this is not something. These people worship this stuff. They study this stuff. You just go, oh, it's mythology. They worship the mythology. They live by it. Your children are playing, what is that right now? God of War. God of War. What do? One God goes around destroying any other God that comes against him or his family. Goes around destroying any other God that comes against him or his family. Goes around destroying any other God. Sounds like this. I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Does it sound similar to you yet? I never even said it like that before, but does that sound similar to you now? It's the same thing. I will kill for this God. Washington set the precedent. Behind him would come John Adams. John Adams worked for him. They were both they are only two presidents being the Federalist Party. Who comes behind that? You have three presidents come behind that: Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. What do they all have in common with George Washington? They're all Virginia slave owners. Look it up. I ain't making this up. Even if you're an atheist, fine. If you're going to follow the Washington, a corporation that's seated in Washington D.C., then you have to recognize that you're following something that's their religiosity. Whether you believe in it or not doesn't mean that that's who doesn't govern you. That's why I tell people all the time, and thank you for the love. That's why I tell people real quick, like, hey, before you start getting to this, that, whatever, and telling me you believe, don't believe, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever, I need you to comprehend, like, just because you don't believe in something doesn't mean you don't put your hand in the Bible and swear yourself in. Sure, you can swear yourself in on anything, right? But a lot of people don't because they're not aware of it, because that's who governs you, even when you don't think you should be governed by it. You said George Washington's wife was black. Yeah, she was, even though she passed for white, right? She was a mulatto, but that's not really what they called her, right? They called her a brunette. Brun en français means brown or brownish. Brunette means brownish. Brun is French for brown, right? So anybody that was a brunette, and go look up the dictionary definition, even in the 1800s still, they keep it the same. It wasn't until certain people's mindset, right? Thinking that they needed to be supreme because of a color that doesn't even exist. Because remember, white is not a color. There's nobody on the planet that's a white person. I don't care how albino you are. There's no such thing as a white person because you can't be melanated and be albino, or be white, rather. You can't be melanated and be white, which means anybody that's alive, they have to have some kind of melanin in them or else they cannot survive. Right. But George Washington's wife, she passed for white. So it's not, that's why I said earlier, it's not always as simple as black and white. You've been taught to keep that up, but it's not as simple as black and white. But still, by people's standards today, y'all would just say she was white. If you're not careful, thank you for the love. If you're not careful, you go by that same thing. Right? Lincoln was Melungeon. That meant that his father was a slave owner who owned his mother. Right. So Lincoln's father was white. His mother was mixed. She was black African and she was copper indigenous. Right. And when he ran, that's, if look at the political satire, the political cartoons they have of Lincoln when he was running for president. He's always got big lips. Sometimes they make him look like an ape or a baboon or something like that. They always have black slaves carrying him on top of him because they knew who he was. See, you have this mindset now that you think that it's just as simple as black and white. But even Abraham Lincoln said himself, right before he ran for president in 1858, he wrote a letter out saying, hey, guys, please don't do this thing where you're going to try to separate from us. I promise you, I don't think that black people know anything. So he still fell for the okie doke. And that's what happens with a lot of us. See, Abraham Lincoln, once again, he was a house Negro. A house Negro is still an overseer. An overseer is still a house Negro. You can be white and be an overseer, which means you're a house Negro. You can be black and be a house Negro, which means you're an overseer. You can say, in a sense, technically, all of us come from Africa, right? I have Shwi or West African blood in me, of course. So I can talk about that, or Yashtel. I can talk about that, the land of Goshen. That's Kemet. I can talk about Kemet itself, because not only do I have E1B1A, but I also have to therefore have E1B1B. And even if you don't believe in that, then you still have to give me the fact that we come off the same part of the tree, which means you also got to talk to me about being Kush, because Kush is Kemet's big brother, right? But also Kush was married into Yashtel, right? I can keep on going and going. My goal is not to separate you as much as it is to get you to recognize you need to separate out of the system, because there cannot be true unity in a system that wants you to be slaves and to fight as slaves. That's why y'all say, where Brooklyn at? You know why you say that? Because you were supposed to argue over whose plantation was better and the size of the plantation. Why you say Chi-Town? Chi-Town's finest right here. Why you say Oaktown? Oaktown represent. Oaktown stand up. Why you say that? Right? Why you say the 202, 404, 808? Right? Why do you say that? The 313. Why you say that? Because we still have a slave mentality. Once again, see, we're talking about the police officers. How do we fix it? Well, once again, if you're talking about physically, what do we have in place? You can feel free to look that information up. If you go, since you're on TikTok, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can go in the description. If you're on TikTok, you can simply just go to our website, go to on our main page, click on the link tree, click on the website, or click on the YouTube page, whichever one you feel like it, and go listen and do some of that stuff or whatever, and see some of the things we do worldwide. But it starts off with what? It starts off with first, what? Acknowledging we have a problem. So just because I can talk about the problem doesn't mean that we don't do anything to solve the problem. And that's often the thing that people have taught us. Once again, slave masters and overseers and house Negroes and stuff have taught us to be able to make sure that we always say, hey, since you're not doing anything about it, don't talk about it. What if somebody doesn't have the ability to do anything about it yet? I praise y'all that I'm in a situation to where I'm separate enough that I can do something about it. Even speaking about it is doing something. But I'm actually in a situation where we give clothes to people and we go visit people and we go out to the street and we make sure that people need stuff and we raise funds up for people through via donation. Everything we do is via donation. So even some of the donations we use to be able to give certain things, we can via donation help people to not have to go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt just to get an education, but they can get degrees right here. Right? We can keep on going and going and going about things. We're looking at trying to get the land together. We're looking at really being strict on certain things so that this year we can finally really do the food trade the way that we really, really want to. We make sure that we ask people, put your business stuff out there so we can support your business and we can buy from each other rather than buying from everybody else. We're teaching things all the time. But once again, it starts off with, are you willing to deal with the problem? The problem is you keep skipping over the problem. How do you get a solution and you skip the problem? Once again, if you'd like to get more information on it, you can wait to the end. It's kofi-ofori.com, KOFI-OFORI.com, or you can click on TikTok on our on our actual link tree, and then click on kofi-ofori.com, or go to YouTube, go to one of the videos, click on it there, either way, and be able to read some of the stuff we're saying. If you like it, or if it agrees with some of the stuff that is your sensibility, feel free to support it. If you feel like it's something that's not great enough for you, then, praise y'all for you even looking it up. Right. But once again, we have this interesting thing that's going on, right? Where we talk about the problem. I'm sorry, we talk about the solutions, but don't talk about the problem. And then, what's really interesting? People who say that, I'm not saying you particular, but a lot of people who say that I've noticed will always, and thank you, Holy Spirit, for this, they'll always talk about the problem. People will keep talking about the problem, problem. But then when I talk about the problem, then they say, well, what's the solution? Have you noticed that? Like, people will be like, well, that's black on black crime. Get yourselves together. Then I say, well, actually, this is where the problem stems from. This is the root of it. Then they say, well, what are you going to do to solve it? Well, you didn't care about solving it. You didn't care about solving it. I'm not saying you in particular. Once again, I'm saying in general, right? People didn't care about solving it. But all of a sudden now you want to talk about the solution. Like, the problem has been there since before we were born. If you really wanted to solve it, you could have been rolling up your sleeves already and solving it. But you didn't want to, did you? Right. And how do you solve a problem? Thank you, babe. How do you solve a problem you can't even define? You don't even know how to define capitalism, a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade industry wielded by private corporations who have owners, and those owners do it for profit, and they are in charge, not the state, not the government. You don't even know what that means. How do you solve something and you keep voting people in who are going to do the same thing? How do you solve it? How do you solve something through the same weapons that they're using when the weapons of your warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through the pulling down of strongholds? How do you fight an enemy that you've never studied? Some of you didn't even know Washington District of Columbia, what that meant. By the way, the District of Columbia, by law, used to be a territory. But right, because George Washington, same person we were talking about, Virginia slave owner, he went to Maryland and Virginia, got them to both give up some land, right, that they were paid for, but they both gave up some land, and they were able to make that into what you now call Washington, D.C. Virginia has taken back that land since, but the federal government, Congress, Congress has jurisdiction over Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has no jurisdiction outside of Congress, but Washington, D.C. has been taken back, part of it, by Virginia. But since Congress says we're in charge and you guys bow down to the federal government, they say technically we still get to be there. So when you look at the definition, the actual definition, Black's Law Dictionary of it, you'll actually discover, and black doesn't mean a black person wrote it. That's the person's last name. When you look up the actual definition of what Washington, D.C. is, you'll see that it used to be a territory, but it's not. So nobody really knows what Washington, D.C. is anymore, but Washington, D.C. is subject to Congress, but Congress only has jurisdiction within Washington, D.C. So what is the United States Corporation if it's located in Washington, D.C.? So you're fighting a battle that's not even real, which means that you got to hold on to something real in order to get you loose of it. It doesn't even make sense because it's not real. But you say this system doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't, because the capital doesn't make sense. So how does capitalism make sense if the capital of your corporation doesn't make sense? Thank you, Sister Mary. If the capital's not real, how does capitalism become real? Because you signed up for it. Here's another lawful thing: whatever you sign up for, it becomes yours. This is systemic Satanism. The Satan has no power over you, only what you sign away. Right? All these stars that sign up for this, that's why they act a fool. That's why they put on this satanic stuff. That's why you got them riding down poles, right? Like, look, I don't even know what Lil Nas X, right? Lil Nas X, okay, fine. You decided that you're gay, whatever. You decided you're queer, I'm not sure. Whichever one you are, like, okay. I don't have a heaven and hell to put you in. right? But why has it gotten to the point to where now you got to put your blood in gear to sell? Like, why does it got to the point now to where you got to slide down a pole from Eden into hell to be able to sit on the devil's lap and then snap his neck at the end of the video so that you can become the devil himself? Like this, you see what I'm saying? It's not. People go, "Oh, you just don't like LGBTQ plus." That's not what we're talking about here. Like, fine, if you've decided to be a I'm sorry, y'all. What is RuPaul? What is RuPaul? What is he? He's a what do you call him? Not burlesque and all that. What is the word I'm looking for? He drag queen. Thank you, babe. Yeah. So if you decide to be a drag queen, be a drag queen. But drag queens have are like they have a show that's not presentable for children. Why are you doing drag queen shows at schools and having children come into it, and you're literally getting in their laps, and you have microphones, and when you put it in front of them, you literally have the microphone, you put it between your legs and have it there with your hands up while the child speaks into the microphone. Like this is when it becomes a problem. If you can be a drag queen, there's a place for drag queens. I'm not saying that I believe it's okay to be one, but it doesn't even matter. Take that to the side. Check it to the side. That's not the issue here. The issue is that you decided now that it's okay to do it in your child's school, or that you'll support it because you're afraid of what somebody's going to say. Why is it okay for us to say, hey, you shouldn't be having sex in front of children, even though they have your children watch it in schools when they're trying to teach them about sex? But I'll leave that to the side. Well, we'll say you shouldn't have sex in front of children. Children shouldn't be having sex with children. Teachers shouldn't be having sex with children. We shouldn't be showing them pornography. We shouldn't have strippers in there. We shouldn't have pimps in there talking to the children about pimping. We shouldn't have prostitutes in there talking to them about prostitution. We shouldn't have strippers in there in poles, making sure that they buck naked, showing their breasts, whether they have things covering their vaginal area or things covering their areola, or they're outright naked. But all of a sudden now it's okay to have drag queens in there. That's when I'm just asking the question: what are we doing? And thank you for the love, appreciate it. That's when I say, what are we doing? Because it's the same profession. Don't get it twisted. Don't just be like, oh, drag queens are their separate thing. No, drag queen's a stripper. There are drag queens, by the way. I'm not just saying this out of myself. There are drag queens that are saying the same thing. Like, we should not be in front of your children. You said vaginal area, meaning what? The vaginal area meaning, like, like there's certain strip clubs that by law you can't show your vagina, you can't show your areola. There's certain places you can, and you can be topless. There's certain places you can be buck naked, right? So what I'm saying is, no matter what way you're wearing your stuff, right? At the end of the day, you shouldn't be stripping it for the children, right? Right? If you want to be a drag queen and do it where drag queens are. If you want to do private shows, do private shows. And by the way, please protect yourself, even if you are a drag queen. I don't hope that something happens to you. Don't do private shows and not know that somebody knows where you are, that somebody can protect you. You can protect yourself, right? I still respect your humanity. Even if I disagree with your decision, I still respect your humanity. Take care of yourself. You hear me? See, this is when people get this thing irritated. It becomes irritating, and you get messed up over this because you think that just because we're calling something out means that we don't care about your humanity. The system that you're in doesn't care about your humanity because they want you to still be slaves. Once again, you're talking about the policing and not realizing that this is slave patrol. I'm not a slave owner. I don't own people. I've been giving management over an environment. Anybody who wants to come into the environment, we ask you respect the environment, but I don't own anybody. Yeah, whatever somebody does behind closed doors, including if those closed doors are in public venues or not, that's not my problem. You see what I'm saying? But when you impose that upon somebody who shouldn't be seeing it, that's the problem. You know what porn means? It comes from the word porneia, which means fornication. Fornication, porneia or porneia in the Greek, it literally means a false image of marriage. If you're married to the Most High, that's a government you're married to. If you're married to the United States Corporation, that's a government you're married to. If you're married to the state of Missouri, that's a government you're married to. And if you do anything that goes against it, it's a false image of marriage. That's why they call it pornography. If you say you belong to the kingdom of heaven, but you're going to allow that stuff to go on, you have a false image of marriage to the Most High. That's what it is. See, one thing they don't like to tell you about sovereignty. Sovereignty is always spiritual. Why do you get two or three witnesses in the court of law? Because the Bible declares that you do. I know you don't like it. That's why I said, even if you don't believe in it, you better study it, because that's what they're using on you. Yeah, if you sign up for the military, that's right. That's why you say, I'll support and defend the Constitution. But the military works for who? The state. Who does the state work for? The state works for the corporation. Who does the corporation work for? Well, they're owned by the owner. Hey, how you doing, Sister Beverly? You're owned. If you're in the military, you own. Even when you get out. That's why they say 4 years after you get out, at least, we got to make sure that, or sometimes 2 years, I guess, depending. But 4 years after you get out, I guess, depending on your RE status, but you know what I'm saying? Like, after you get out, guess what you got to do? You got to be ready to go back if we ask you to. You sign the covenant. That's what a covenant is. It's an agreement. We already talked about the owner earlier. The first owner that y'all deal with is George Washington. He's the God, right? The obelisk. We just talked about that. By the way, they got the obelisk not in just Washington, but the obelisk is in Memphis. Go see what goes on in Memphis and see why they think that somebody owns you there too. Oh, by the way, the obelisk is also in Kemet. Go look at what Kemetic people thought about their pharaohs and why they got a chance to own people, whether they did it righteously or not so. Oh, by the way, go and look up at the Vatican. What does the Vatican have? The Vatican is where the Pope resides. The Pope is supposed to be the vicar. He's supposed to be literally Christ in the flesh. Y'all didn't know that, but that's the truth. He's supposed to be Christ in the flesh, which means that he has to own you because he bought you. He purchased you with the price. If you believe that the Pope is in fact the vicar who is the Christ in the flesh. So when you do your communion, not Passover. Passover is different than communion, but when you do your communion with him, you are literally eating of him, and he's supposed to be the sacrifice for you, and he's not going to drink the cup with you, but you're going to drink the cup for yourself. So when he takes his own communion, he drinks of his own blood, he eats of his own flesh. When you take it, you eat of his blood, you eat of his flesh, and therefore he's supposed to be the one that has all power. You signed up for it. When you go to, not only is Washington's layout like the Vatican, Memphis layout is like the Vatican, and so is Kemet's. And anywhere you're going to see an obelisk, you're probably going to see a reflective pool somewhere near it. Go to Washington, D.C., look for a reflective pool. Where is that? That leads from the phallus all the way to Abraham Lincoln. The one who did what? Who helped to develop the 13th Amendment that said that you are no longer a slave just because you're black, but because we arrest you. That's representing that prison industrial complex move they did on you. You said the one in Baltimore shaped like a real phallus. Yeah, I've heard of that one. I haven't seen that one up close. I actually have property over in that area, so I should at some point look at it for myself, but I haven't actually seen that one yet. See, I'm just saying, you're seeing the same thing. It keeps traveling, but you're only focused on, oh, black versus white. You focus on Jason Whitlock's head. You're focused on all police officers. ACAB. You said Abraham Lincoln does look like God's eyes in the monument. Oh yeah, if you've ever been there, like Abraham Lincoln's huge. Right. And by the way, remember we talked about even what else? What else it comes with the phallus and what makes the phallus hard? Somebody mentioned it. I didn't get into it, but blood. So you had the seed, you had the phallus, but then you have a bloodline. And when you marry people into something, you always got to marry what? People of what? Even though they say color makes you a fake person, but they always marry in POC. The name Christ really just means, it wasn't a name. First of all, it's not a name either way, whether you're talking Messiah, Mashiach, Christos, Christ, etc. It's not a name, it's a title, right? But Christ just means, or Christos just literally means anointed. Now, Christianos is when people started messing around with the anointing. People didn't like Christianos, which is what word Christian comes out of. They didn't believe that meant Christ-like. It meant like, or they didn't think of it as positive. They were like Christ-like, literally meaning like, oh, you guys mess around with Christ. You guys don't actually believe what the Christ taught. So Christianos were never a cool thing up until, the Roman Catholic Church mixed all the stuff together. right? See, but you got to marry these people in, and once you do that, yeah, you're married. You have in-laws. See, we're dealing with a spirit. People don't want to talk about this, right? But there's a spirit on this. When somebody comes to you with that badge, deputy sheriff, Los Angeles County, what are they saying? Runaway slave patrol, trying to see if we need to take you in or not. Yeah, thank you, Callie P. I'm sorry I missed you earlier. Thank you, Latoya. You said it's Queen Khalifa, another version of ISIS. Well, people depict her kind of sort of like that, but she still is a false spirit, if you will, a false goddess, if you want to use that term, or deity. But she was somebody that her own tribe deified, if you will. Yeah, I've seen a picture of the Pope kissing Black's feet, and some of that's pandering. Some of it, if you're talking about the Christ, some of it's him kissing the feet of people that he believes to be in the bloodline. Some of it is just, if you're talking about the statue of the Christ, even that's just talking about, him basically kissing supposed to be kissing Yeshua's feet, because they don't have a problem with him being black. Although he's in iconoclasm, they give that to y'all once again for us to fight each other. But they actually, in a lot of European places, believe it or not, especially you go to places like some of the ones you don't think of, Croatia, Russia, places like that, you'll see a black Christ all over the place. Right? They call it the Madonna and Christ child, because remember they took Miriam, and they Mariam, or who we call Mary, they took her and made her into the Madonna, because Madonna in their system had a child, so they just mixed the two together. That's the iron and the clay coming together. But see what I'm saying? Like you have this thing where you're looking at it in the wrong dimension. The dimension of thought is not correct. How you doing, King Wins? That it's the wrong area it's the wrong way to think about this. Right? We're thinking about this as simple as black, white. So now when a black person kills a black person, can you believe that 5 black police officers, they're not the first 5 black police officers. Matter of fact, don't forget about something like the Buffalo Soldiers, who I got a great deal of respect for, but the Buffalo Soldiers, they killed some of their own. They weren't just Igbo people only who were Buffalo Soldiers. They were natives too, who killed natives, who killed what you would consider today to just be black folk. Right? But they did it because how did you get your house Negro status? How did you get a house Negro status? You saved the house. The house is what it's all about. See, this is why the house Negro versus the slave Negro development is very interesting to study and go down that line of thought. Right? How do you make sure that you take care of the house Negro? Right? Or how do you determine somebody's a house Negro? You have done something to them to make them feel like you get to choose them, authorize them, that they come inside. Right? So when the house would burn down, as Malcolm taught us, right? Minister Malcolm taught us, if the house was going to burn down, who was going to fight harder to put the blaze out, the slave master or the house Negro? Right? If the house was going to burn down, who was going to fight harder to put the fire out, the house Negro or the slave master? It's going to be the house Negro. Why? Because the house Negro, if the house burned down, the house Negro is in the same position as everybody else. Matter of fact, they don't have any houses out in the field, or they can't sleep under the stars like everybody else because they don't do that. Yeah, what's the matter, boss? We sick? What's the matter, master? We sick, right? If the master got sick, they would say, What's the matter? We sick, right? But they fought harder to put the blaze out than the master did himself. Why? Because if the house burns down, the master's still white. And everybody's been taught that because he's white, he still must be in charge. But the house Negro has nothing to determine that they're better or worse than anybody else except the house. That's the problem that still exists today. Once again, we look at this thing as far as it was just 5 black police officers and this and that. No, these are house Negroes. You said, yeah, the name Christ. Well, once again, Christ is not a name. Christ is a like Christos possibly could have came. Christ is not a name. Christ's name is not actually Jesus or Yesu or Jesus or Jesus, etc. Right? Which people try to say, well, it's Horu, but it's not even the same story as we just determined, right? His name is actually Yehoshaphat. Some people say Yeshua, some people say Yahushua, some people say Yahushai, Yahushai. But we hear in our dialect, we say Yehoshaphat, right? Yehoshaphat or Yeshua, right? And we say that particular has a particular meaning, going with the name Yahweh. Or some people say Yahweh, 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 Yahuwah. And usually that's dialect or people in the land of captivity trying to figure out how to say it. Right. But we don't even have some of those terms, like when people say, oh, it's Horus, blah, blah. Like in ancient Avda, you didn't have you only had, we don't have vowels, but technically you would have only had 3 vowel sounds. If you want to use what we use as vowels, you would have you would have you would have had I. Right. So if you don't have those sounds, or if you have any other sounds that is probably not original Israelite language or Alpha or Hebrew language. By the way, that language predates Israel too, right? It predates the flood, if you even want to go there, but it predates Israel, right? So a lot of people use those the Aleph Bait or Aleph Bet, right? Which a Phoenician had to come and change so that you could have an alphabet, so that Greeks could be able to use something similar since they had no alphabet yet. Right. So you got to know about those things that my wife was bringing out last night. So there's a lot of stuff that we're just not aware of. We don't think about. We're not cognitive of. That's why we have the dissonance. We have the cognitive dissonance. We're double minded. Yes. Once again, yep. I'm with you for the. I'm not trying to get on you for the umpteenth time. Yes, we know that there's a white police officer, and the fact that the white police officer is not being presented in these pictures shows us some of what we're talking about. All right. So we're with you. All right. I apologize if I don't answer that for anybody else coming on, but I get you, right? But that's part of what we're talking about. How does that come into being, right? How does that come into being, right? How does that come into being? It comes into being because, see, we're just talking about is black, white, or black, black, or what are your thoughts? Well, the thoughts are the same things we've been talking about, right? There's some laws and some principles that people don't recognize. Once again, laws are not designed to give rights, laws are there to protect rights. So if you're not looked at as somebody who should be protected, then they don't care about law. Okay, well, side of somebody only muted you because you asked that one question. I apologize. Now you're back on. So hopefully this doesn't become a thing of where you're going to make that the whole time. That I need to know about that somebody did that. So now that you're back on, thanks for being back on. We said this earlier several times as well, but let me say it again. I apologize. And if you got muted, you probably heard me say it within the last 5 minutes or so. But um, to be a person of color in the West is a bad thing. To be a person of color, as far as we're concerned, is a great thing. But if you're going to be in the world, like being a color, right, is considered to be somebody who's not necessarily there. Okay, see, so one of the moderators is saying it wasn't as simple as you just asked a question. It must have been that you wanted me to answer, so somebody answered, or I just missed your question. Either way, though, you're welcome. Right on, as far as I'm concerned. But thank you for being on. If that's what your question is, like basically that's what we're talking about with color. Color in if you call yourself colored according to Western law, you're considered to be a fake person. So according to Western law, they don't like colored people. Here we go again. Somebody help me out. I already said what the white cop thing is. So somebody, if you're willing to go ahead and listen to what I've already said, somebody might put in the comment section for you, or might not, right? But the fact that the white cop is missing, that's the problem. You see what's going on? You see what I'm saying? Like people won't even listen long enough to be like, what's the point of this exercise, right? That's why I had to make sure that I'm going through different pictures over and over again, so people don't just get caught up on one picture. Because we're in such disarray that we can't even listen. Okay. I don't know what to tell you guys. All right. People, okay. Do it. Figure out why you were muted however you would like to. Okay. See, it gets to a point like people aren't even listening. If you were muted, did you get off when you were muted because you were so upset and now you came back to make sure you said, why are you muted? Right. I'm more concerned about why is it muted, this information that you're not getting. How about that? All right. I trust our moderators and we have mad respect for them and they do what they're supposed to. You said which race funded this police? All of them. And that's the problem, is that you don't realize that the police are funded by your taxes, yet don't work for you. They work for the people that you pay. Salah. Right? Pause and think about it. You see what I'm saying? People can't get this because you're so quick to be. You think that I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I care about white, black, this, and that. I don't care about that. What race funded them? All of them. That's the problem. But they got you to believe that it matters what race did it. Who cares who did it? He's dead. If you want to get into it, let's get into it. Who cares who did it? He's dead. Isn't that problematic when anybody gets killed? Okay, I'm all over the place. How about this once again? He's dead. Is that central enough? See, even in the midst of me saying he's dead, you're all over the place. Well, you just came on probably because, yeah, we do this for hours. If you want to listen to the recording to see what the progression was, feel free to. But hear what I'm saying now then. Okay, once again, you do what you do as far as the muting thing. All right? Blame me, blame whomever, whatever. If you'd like to be able to be part of the conversation, you could easily do it. Right? Please forgive me if you feel like it's something that's there. You don't have to trust me, but forgive me. And let's keep on moving, right? You see what I'm saying? We can't even do that. This is my problem. This is what I'm hurt by. You did this. You did that. Blah blah. Like this person's dead at the end of the day. You don't want to. You want to find out why, and you don't want to see that this is not just a one-off, and that you want me to argue on behalf of a one-off. This is not a one-off. This is a system. This is a religion. A legion of people that repetitively do the same thing, and you're more mindful about where you are as far as like. Let me be empathetic. I'm about to sin. I'm not going to sin. Right? Let me be empathetic. Please be careful that you don't become so lost in the sauce as far as how this affects you that you don't realize that this is something that has caused somebody else's death, and you're not aware of the fact that if we're not careful about the system and coming out of this system is designed to come right after you as well. You see what I'm saying? That's not even being talked about. Why was I muted? Why was I mistreated? Why was I? You're not the one dead. And if you don't want to be killed, we need to figure this out. That hopefully that's central enough for people saying we're all over the place, and we wouldn't have to be all over the place if we didn't have to deal with those comments. I guess I should just ignore it. But then when I ignore it, y'all get mad and y'all tell me that you can't be on anymore because I ignore your questions. See, you can't even have it both ways. The saying didn't used to be you want your cake and eat it too. It means that if you eat your cake, you can't have it too. That's the actual West African way of saying it. You want to eat your cake and then tell me, and have it later to present to me as well. No, like if you eating the cake, Tina, then realize that Ike is all up on you. If you want to get away from Ike, you got to make the decision to leave and be bold enough that when Ike shows up with a gun at the end, that you still willing to say that I'm still gone. And if you kill me, so what? But it shows me that you're sad. Right? It shows me that you're in a sad place. We're all in a place of trying to get over this, in a place of mourning, but we don't need a good mourning. We don't need God mourning. We need to mourn that we be comforted by the Most High, and that we can at least have some laws to be able to make sure we redistribute our emotional status and our emotional state. Psychologically, we're messed up because we're still dealing in PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome. You still have PTSD and are still whipping your children because somebody else whipped you. And they were whipped by somebody else. And then the overseers would have the house Negroes or even the Toms or the Sambos. They would have them whip the people so that you could say, I only whipped you because I love you. Now you say the same thing to your child. This is the issue. Those black police officers saw a black little boy and said, we need to do what? We need to whip you, because that's what you call them anyways. You call them boy. So we need to whip you because we love you. If you would act right and stop making us look bad to the massa, we wouldn't have to whip you. This is the mindset. I know, right, Sister Deja, but people don't know that. They just come on there just like, oh, you're all over the place. Yeah. Right? People don't want to talk about racism, realizing that race originally was a competition. So you got to ask yourself, why do you think about race as a color if you don't think that it exists? If somebody says on your marks, get set, go, is that not a race? So why do you even think that when I say race, it has to be a color? That's because you know it exists. We praise you out that you're learning, right? You know it exists. Stop playing with it. All these people talking about misogyny, it doesn't exist. There's no patriarchy. Well, then why if somebody describes patriarchy, why do you know that it exists? Why can you give an example of it and then say, well, that one example shouldn't be what everybody else has used? Okay, then so you know what it means, you know what it is. Even if you're not a patriarch, you still know what it is. Misandry doesn't exist. They're just making it up and blah blah. No, it does exist. You know that there's sisters out there that treat their husbands like that. Why are you trying to act like it's not real? Deuteronomy 28 verse 54 says that men who are tender, unprepared, will start doing things that unprepared men do, and they'll start being jealous of each other. They'll start being jealous of their own wives, and they'll start taking it out on their children. And then that'll set up Deuteronomy 28:56 for women to be able to start doing the same thing. And then the children will start doing the same thing. And it becomes a cycle. But you say, oh, I can't believe in anything the Bible has to say. Well, even if you don't believe that everything happened, then you're telling me you can't believe that? You can't see the spirit in that. You can't see the pneuma, the pneumatical thought in that. That's what spirit means in the Greek, by the way. And the word pneuma literally means a stoic thought that marries the spirit, the soul, and the body together. Or the psychology, psyche in the Greek, Psyche, it means soul. Psychology is the study of the soul. Psychologist is someone proficient at studying your soul. What are we talking about here? Either you don't know what this stuff means or you just won't admit it. You talking about you don't believe in the universe and the creator of the universe. Stop using the word universe then, because the word universe, universe, a verse, single spoken sentence. So you can have a universe without a single spoken sentence. You need to figure out who's spoken into existence. Even Franken Beans over here, right? Who has the greatest of names to show his intellectual property and intellectual, depthness and profound nature, is on here not being able to listen past a couple seconds and has to use ad hominem to show that he is unapologetically, right, sound. Is not clean. That's what the word sound even comes from, believe it or not. The way we use it nowadays, sound doctrine, it means clean doctrine. What does clean mean? It means to be lawful or legal. Coming up here with dirty doctrine. Dirty doctrine. This thing is dirt. And you're being told that it's clean and it's lawful. It's dirty what they do to you. That's why you say it's dirty. That's so dirty. That's so despicable. That's grimy with it. You even describe certain places, right? Like you'd be like, the brothers over here, they'll do you dirty and everything, but they, if you give respect, they'll give respect. But over here, them brothers, they grimy. You know why you say that? Because you know that grimy means that it's not righteous. It's not righteous. You know it's not righteous. You know it's not in right lawful standing, right legal standing. You know it's not. But you're trying to argue against it. Let me ask you this though: if you argue against righteous, and I'm sorry, Laporte, how you doing? I missed you earlier. If you argue against righteousness, which is right lawful standing, then what are you really arguing for? So y'all didn't come. Y'all came ready to just talk to somebody thinking that they had no knowledge, no intimacy with this, no study habits. If you're arguing for something that against righteousness, which is right lawful or right legal standing, then what you're asking for is chaos. And now you've got a chaotic system, and you won't admit it. It has no structure. It has no order. It has no rhyme, no reason, except that we be honest with it. Wait a minute. If the system's not really broken because they're just doing what the president set as precedents, right? Then it actually works better than a lot of us work. I wish I could say that it was just somebody not trying to keep up. See, in their mind, they think that it's righteous because it's right lawful standing to look at somebody as not a human being. Oh, you don't believe so? See, you think that you were only considered to be 3/5 of a human being. That's what they tell you, right? 60% of a human being, because you think that's what it meant when they had the 3/5 compromise. But no, 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 no. The 3/5 compromise came into effect after you were already slaves, right? You were already being enslaved. A slave is 0% human being, which is why you go by your birth certificate, that fake version of yourself. See, you were already considered to be 0% of a human being. You hear what I'm saying? You were already considered to be what? 0% of a human being. To be 0% of a human being means you have no human right. That's why if you look up even in Black's Law Dictionary and this Western dictionary, you will discover that and when it comes to Western law, a human being is considered to be a monster by definition. Literally, if you look up in Black's Law Dictionary, what is the definition of human? And you will see next to it two words, C as in SEE, look for, C, monster. And then you look up monster. A monster is somebody who's monstrous because you could break the system apart if you just simply became a human being. What is a human being by the Western definition? It is a humus man, compound word. Humus meaning dark, rich, nutrient earth, man with a spirit inside of it. So if you are dark, rich, nutrient earth with a spirit inside, you are a monster according to the West. And yet you still want to tell me that there's nothing wrong with that. And you want to tell me that they're not monstrous in the way that they're putting this together. That means that even other monsters, by their definition, black folk, even other monsters still see monsters as monstrous. You would think that if you were a monster, you'd be like, well, okay, if they consider us to be monsters, we'll be cool with each other. No, you look at another person and you see their hair, you see their hips, you see their mindset and all those things. Oh yeah, we definitely talk about it in the code breaking series, right? The one that says talks about masculine or whatever we called it in that series, right? But you don't even recognize. You see a monster when you look at yourself. So if you see a monster when you look at yourself, anything that looks like you is monstrous. Let me shave my head off. Let me make sure that I wear what everybody else wears. Let me make sure I perm my hair, giving myself fibroid cysts. But I'd rather have fibroid cysts than look like myself. Let me make sure that I never put down anywhere that I even consider myself to be black or African American. I'm just American. We're all American. Let me say things that don't make sense, like the guy was our brother, he's still our brother. He just wayward, but our brother, I don't even remember his name. I don't even know his name. I've seen him so many times. Our brother who's out there talking about, oh man, I hope that white people don't die off, which I hope too. But this is the part that had the problem. But the next part, he said, I hope white people don't die off. And then he says, because they're so intelligent, they're so creative. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have lots of music and this and that or whatever. Like that's how much you hate yourself, that you will dismiss your own culture, your own patterns, your own ancestry, just to ensure that you can fit in, because you see yourself as a monster. When you see yourself as a monster, see that's why a lot of black folk are still depressed, because a lot of you still see yourself as slaves. It's hard to come out of slavery if you still see yourself as what you say you're coming out of. That's why you got to come out mind first, head first. You got to dive up, not dive into anymore. It's time to dive out. You said, who said that? Uncle Ruckus? Well, Uncle Ruckus sounds like he's something he would agree with, but no, we have actual Uncle Ruckuses that have been out saying this stuff. I don't get surprised when people say that. If you look at yourself as a monster, then when you see somebody who looks like anything of yourself that you've tried to trim down and make sure it's nice and neat, and you've got your tie on, you've got your slave patrol badge on, you've got something saying what you are, you got your stripes on. Are you a corporal? Are you a private? Are you a sergeant? Are you a PFC? Right, whatever it is. Like I've seen you see yourself as something better or greater than that. And thank you for the love for the person who sent it. Appreciate it. Right? You see yourself as better than what you are. Now, really, you are greater than what they say you are. But what I mean by that is you think you're better than what you are. See, if anything black or colored, right? Remember what they say is a fake human being. If anything black, colored, African American, or Negro is a fake person, then I need to get away from it. Now, watch this. Who are the original Negroes? There's two answers to that. There's the original, what I'm talking about, going way, way back, thousands of years ago. And then there's the original Negro I'm talking about, going hundreds of years ago back. Who's the original Negroes? Why do you hate being Negro? Because you know deep down inside there's something in you. You don't even know what Negro means, but I promise you, see, you've read it somewhere, you've seen pieces of it. Up there you go. So Nagas, Negus, Negus, right? We can definitely go there, right? But but one of the most ancient ways of saying West Africa, right? And also which would go into some of Central Africa as well. So and of course had no problem kind of calling themselves that, and even places in East Africa, of course, too, right? So Niger, but that's the ancient way, right? If we will, like an ancient, extremely ancient way, right? But then here's what's one of the more recent ways of saying Negro, or who's the most recent Negros and Negroes? They are the people who were Moors who had Israelite belief systems. Look up Sephardic Jews, Sepharic Jews. I mentioned them earlier, and look at what they mean. Look at what that meant when they said it back then. They didn't say Jews because there was no letter J yet. But when you see books written in the 1800s of people trying to reinterpret it, they'll try to put in this thing called Sephardic Jews to get you off of the track and think, well, maybe they're related to Ashkenazi and Khazarian. But no. They say Sephardic Jews. Sephardic is something different. Once again, I said this earlier, let me say it again. They were listed as people that were tall, slim, black. They kept Israelite law. They were into women heavy. So remember, in Spain and in Portugal, which are the two places they're talking about these Sephardic Jews, they went back and forth, man to woman, man to woman, man to woman. Right? They were bisexual. It was their nature, and usually they were more on the homosexual side, but they would use women to have babies. That's Greco-Roman belief system, right? However, like these Hebrews, they just like women, these men. And it said that they had coarse hair. It said that they had nappy hair. It said that they had hair that rose up to the sun. It said that they resembled people in the land of Canaan. It said they resembled people of West Africa, where they seem to have descended from. It said that they wore black hoodies. They were actually forced at that point to wear black hoodies. It said that they would wear these hoodies and they would play music. It said they would wear these hoodies, play music, and they would put poetry over the music. You call that hip hop. That's what you call it now. You call it part of hip hop. You call it rap. You call it MCing. You call it being a DJ that puts the music out there for somebody to rap over. That's what you did. They said that those people back then, I'm talking about way before Hitler, before people tried to say this is where it came from. Hitler used a term that was used for other people and told people one of the reasons, even though he was wrong for what he did. Let's make that clear. He was wrong for what he did, but he made that one of the reasons why he tried to excuse his killing Jews is because he said that the Jews are not actually who they say they are. Right? He's still wrong. I'm just trying to tell you. This is stuff known way before. We're talking hundreds of years before. These Sephardic Jews also lived in ghettos. You said quote scripture. Which one you want me to requote? You just came on, so you're assuming I don't say anything about scripture. Which scripture would you like me to requote? Well, I mean, we just finished talking about Deuteronomy 28, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. Which one you want to keep? Which one would you prefer? Why is it you have to have control of somebody else's conversation? See, once again, you have to realize what system you're in. Even when you tell the truth, somebody has to tell you why the truth is not valuable enough. Dance for me, boy. Dance for me, boy. Even if you're black and you say dance for me, boy. That's what what's his face said to Meg the Stallion. Had her in the car. Dance for me, girl. Because you act like your oppressor. Stockholm syndrome. You love acting like you're oppressor if you're not the oppressor yourself. And then here's the problem. Once again, even the overseer doesn't recognize that he lives in the same style house that the slave does. He just thinks he's better because he's allowed to whip the slave. But you go back to the same house. You hate the person that you rape. Think about that. The overseer hates the person and says that there's nothing attractive about the person that they rape. I mean, if we don't see the cognitive dissonance there, I don't know how much. I'm just saying. People don't like it, but that's true. Think about that now. We poor, we destitute, we disgusted, we ugly, we don't know law, but you dang sure like to take everything from us and then say that it's yours. And then you like to impregnate it yourself in us so that we'll feel like we have to be bound to you in some way, shape, or form to give you back stuff. But you know what? Maybe we'll just say, even though we're thankful for the child you gave us, but we'd rather just make sure the child is separated from you too, because you're a deadbeat. And I'd rather not have my child pine after a deadbeat. And I'll make sure that he has a father figure that looks like us. You don't like that, do you? Protect this live Yahweh. You don't like that, do you? When somebody speaks with authority, they say, hey, you might have put this in us. And we might have to take care of this, and we might have to raise ourselves and get this back on track. But we're not going to look up to you to be our father anymore. You're not our source. Oh, that messes with people. This is what the real issue is, y'all. People don't want to talk about this because somebody's willing to say, you are not in control of me. I've learned how to be sovereign in mind, body, and spirit. It's over. And mind, soul, and spirit, rather. Excuse me. No, I'm not even saying it right. Mind and soul, and mind, soul, and body. There we go. I've learned how to be sovereign in every aspect. You are not my source. You are not my standard. Thank you so much. You've been the standard. You could have fixed it. You decided not to. You decided to make it worse. And you want me to keep living in something that is insanity, watching my people go through the same thing. I cannot save all my people. You have made that very clear in your actions. However, those who would like to report, you're ported here and you'd like to go somewhere else where the water's fine over there too. Matter of fact, it's clear and you can be in a position to manage the materials that the Most High has created. Let's go. Let's roll out. And those of y'all who want to be grafted in and be like-minded, y'all can come too. Let's go ahead and do this. But we're done being part of a wicked system that's corrupt, that says that we got to bow down to something just because you identify with wickedness. We have to identify with wickedness. It's over. It's done. I wish I had the patience. Maybe if I had the patience or the long suffering, but I only have long suffering for righteousness, for right lawful standing. I'm done with it. And it makes people upset. I'm done with people that say that I don't have the ability to be a Jeli Kriyat. See, over there in West Africa, I'm considered to be Jeli Kriyat. They say if somebody like me were to go down, the library goes down. They value me over there because I've taken time out to know my people. Over here, you would say, oh, we erase anything that has to do with your people, and therefore you're a negative influence on our people. But then you tell me that this is the place that I should stay because it's worse over there. But when I go over there, they got better cities than you do. They got better infrastructure than you do. Oh, yes, they do. You only want to focus on the bad places, but you don't do that. You don't say you know that Chicago's got some nice spots, right? You don't show Southside Chicago when you're trying to get somebody to talk about how great Chicago is, or at least some of the spots in Southside Chicago. You don't show Oaktown when you're trying to show people the San Francisco area, do you? Because you know that there's righteous places, there's great places, there's awesome places, and you know that there's bad places. See, you messed up when you let me join the military because I traveled and I saw for myself. You messed up when you allowed me to be able to have a chance to get with my wife, my queen, to be able to recognize, like, and her tell me her experience. And she's had travels in a lot of places that I haven't, and probably has traveled a lot more than I have. Right? You messed up when I was able to actually start going to different places for myself. You messed up when you allowed me to get in a position to where now I could travel across America, because I know that traveling and driving is different. And as I traveled across the United States corporation, I realized that the United States of America is different than the corporation. You messed up when I got to see tribes and how they work and the different things and where they come from. You messed up when I got to be able to see some of the same stuff and be able to be blessed by it. You messed up when I realized, wait a minute, I have a right to everything too, because I know the law. You messed up when you made it presentable to me. You messed right. You messed up. You messed up. But you know what? You really didn't mess up. You don't realize Yah provided. Right? And he made a way. It was always there. He was just waiting for some stuff to happen, the dust to depart. And once I said, I'm gonna be faithful, I'm gonna be obedient, I'm gonna be all in. Like I said yesterday, this is how I eat every day. This is what I do every day. Like I don't go out to a 9 to 5. I trust. I've been called to this thing, and because I do what I'm doing and I'm obedient to it, it doesn't matter. Every day He's gonna take care of every need that I need, not just my needs, but also my wants. Which means that if my need is for my people to be successful, He's gonna take care of that and what my people want. And I'm gonna continue to go down this road. And people are upset about it. See, that's the thing that's happening on. See, this is not just simple as racism or classism. This is something that is systemic Satanism. At the end of the day, though, the devil has no authority over those who are not of him. We talked about that lately, right? I forget what verse it was that we talked about it, but we ran down this and we made, I think this was in John 15. somewhere around there, maybe John 16, but it says in there very clearly, he makes a statement, or maybe it's even John 14. I can't remember. We did John 13, 14, 15, 16 in a row. But it says in there, it makes a statement. It says that the prince of this world is or cometh. He's going to continue to try and come. And he says right after it, he says, but none of but he can't find any of me, or sorry, he can't find any of himself in me. He can't find any of the system in me. He can't find anything in his system that's in me. That's why they're upset. That's why they're gathering around. That's why they're starting to pay attention. Wait a minute, what are they doing? What are they talking about? What are they doing? We got to get them off this. We got to cancel them. We got to say that they're this. We got to call them cowards. We got to say that they're not willing to. We got to make them break down, because nothing that's in them is in me. You hear what I'm saying? Not a thing that is in them is in me. They can't find themselves in me anymore. They're looking and they're upset. They're frustrated. They can't find hate. They're looking for me to be bitter back towards them, but they can't find the hate. They're looking for me to cower around them, because they have to come in groups. They can't come and deal with this one-on-one with words. They have to use guns and ropes and all types of stuff, and horses to pull us apart and all types of things. They have to pillage our women. And now that we're not doing the same thing back, they're like, "Ooh, okay, we can't find them there." They're trying to irritate. They come on as trolls, and they can't get us to be able to have troll behavior and reciprocate that. They're mad because they can't find any of them in me. That's how you got to live. They shouldn't find any of them in you. They shouldn't find any of them in you, because you're not satanic. You hear what I'm saying? You shouldn't agree. You should be a peculiar people, a holy nation, a royal priesthood, chosen in this generation to make sure that you show forth the praises of what the Most High said. We just talked about that in the early rise of Bible study session. They should not find any of them in us. It doesn't make sense to be a nation. Look up the word people lawfully. I didn't even get into that in this rise, and I meant to, but Holy Spirit had us go somewhere else. So, you always got to be obedient, but maybe it was for this. Praise Yah. Look up the definition of people lawfully. What is a lawful definition of a people? A people is not a person. It is not persons. A people is a nation. How do you become a people? You become a nation. You are not a people until you become a nation. A nation has ownership. They're owned by their own spirit, their own Elohim. Right? You don't have that. You worship God. Even when you talk about Kemet didn't have gods, but you say you're Kemetic, but you're still saying I'm the God. No, in Kemet, it was very clear who the gods were, and they weren't called gods. They were called Netchers, even the ones that walked the earth. You are not them if you're still saying you're a god. You don't even own your own language. Yeah, we are a peculiar people. Nothing of them should be in us. That's why when somebody says, "Oh, I worship God," no, I don't worship God. God is a Germanic thing where you can make it whatever you want it to be. I don't worship that. There's something specific that I worship that comes from my people, that is for my people, that resonates with my people. That's what you do. That's law. That's why people don't want you to study law. When you study law, you realize, wait a minute, I can't be a people, which means I can't be protected until I become a people. How does the Most High come protect me if I won't become a people? Oh, that's a word. See, you talk about the Bible. Read your Bible, it'll bless you. How do you become his people if you don't even live by his law? His law protects his people. We talked about in the early rise of Bible study session. He inhabits the praises of his people. Look at the word inhabits. He's inside the habits of his people. What are the habits based upon? The law, and the law protects your rights. And so when you praise him, remember, only 7% of communication is verbal. 93% of it is nonverbal, which means that in the 93%, he's still looking for you to praise him. How are you going to praise him as his people, but you don't lift up what he says? You don't appreciate nothing. That's why we would say it to our children. You don't appreciate nothing, right? Appreciate means to grow in value. If I'm going to appreciate, look at if I'm going to appreciate a diamond, I need to look at the value of it. You don't find them valuable. You said that's why we can't get reparations, because the money is an exchange from one nation to another nation. Boom. Right. We were talking about that earlier. You have to become separate from this nation in order to receive reparations. I know y'all not going to like me saying this, and I've never really gone this deep into it, but let's go ahead. The Holy Spirit has opened it up. I've never really thought some of the things that I feel are about to come out, but let's just do it. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Look, don't be mad at Japan because they got reparations. You know why? because Japan got reparations because they are a separate nation. Don't get mad at Jews who get reparations. Why? Because they're a separate nation. Don't get upset at some of the Chinese and Jewish and Japanese families that still get reparations here for what was done to their family members. Why? Because they consider themselves a separate nation. They live like that. They separated from you. Don't get mad that you don't get reparations anymore. You know why? Because once again, 14th Amendment citizenship is what you want. And in 14th Amendment citizenship, we're almost done. If you can hang in there just a little bit, we'll be showing you, where you can get some of this information and things like that if you want more in a second, right? But you need to recognize, if you're going to live in that 14th Amendment citizenship, praise Yah. If you're going to live in that 14th Amendment citizenship, I need you to comprehend something. I need you to recognize something. I need you to catch something. If you're going to live in 14th Amendment citizenship, you ready? 14th Amendment citizenship says that if you're born on their land, it doesn't matter who you're from, it matters where you're from. So if you decided you're not going to be who you are and you want to be where they are, then guess what? You don't get reparations anymore. You gave it up because you didn't want to be a freedman. You wanted to be this modern version of an American, which is what they took from you because you were the original American by definition. A copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. You see, so you might be upset that somebody else is getting reparations, but they can't give you reparations until you separate. This is why they tell you on one end, oh, we'll work towards reparations, and at the same time, they say keep being part of the system. It's cognitive dissonance. It's cognitive dissonance. You want something that only comes through separation, but you want it while being connected. It's cognitive dissonance. It's one or the other. And I didn't call it segregation. I'm not saying you can never be around white people, blah, blah, this and that. I'm saying the only reason you can get reparations is because you should be separate. Right? The only reason is because you got to be separate. Kilmo, how you doing, Brother Jonathan? I was just thinking about you heavy the other day. Right? The only reason you can get reparations is because you're separate. The only reason why you can get a blessing from the Most High is because you're separate. Oh, you don't want to go there, right? The only reason why you can protect yourself from police officers is if you have your own land and you police yourselves. You don't have nothing to police yourself, though. The black community, blah, blah, the black community. Oh, y'all ain't really, some of y'all really ain't gonna like this. Some of y'all really ain't gonna like this, right? Black community. What you mean black community? Where is it that black people come together and commune that they own? Thank you for the love, right? I mean, I know we got a restaurant here. Maybe we got a farm here or there. Where is your black community where you own the gas? I'm not talking about just the steam or the energy, right? I'm talking about you own the gasoline for your car. You own the gas. You own the water. You own the land. Where is that? You got to come out of it. If you want that, you got to come out of it. If you need that, if you crave that, you got to come out and you got to put something in. And you can't just put it in until it matches your criteria, until your patience runs out. You got to be a long sufferer until whatever it takes. If you really want this, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it.